Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So we're going to get this kicked off right now. Distinguished delegates, representatives of member states, colleagues from the United Nations system, our hosts, the permanent mission of Nigeria to the United Nations, partners, and above all, the girls and the young women in this work exist for good day and welcome. My name is Ola Oluyinka. I serve as the Vice President of International Affairs of the Do the Dream Youth Development Initiative, and as the co-founder of the Girls in Energy Project. It is my privilege to moderate this official HLPF 2026 offsite event, Intersectionality as Economy, in which we're connecting SDGs 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17 for impact through local action and powering progress. We gather at a deliberate moment. The high-level political forum asks the world to account for its progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we offer an account rooted in local action, a framework built in Lagos, Nigeria, that treats intersectionality not as a lens applied after outcomes are measured, but as an economy in its own right, one with infrastructure, capital, and returns built through the lived pathway of girls moving into the energy sector. Over the next hour, you'll hear how the Girls in Energy Village, the Girls in Energy Industrial Village, and the Girls in Energy Fund work together as a single ecosystem. How that ecosystem connects clean water, clean energy, industry, sustainable cities, and partnership into one coherent value chain, and how this framework is advancing from Nigeria into Africa and onward into the wider global south. It is therefore my privilege as Vice President, International Affairs, and co-founder of Girls in Energy to formally declare open this HLPF 2026 offsite side event, Intersectionality as Economy. I invite every delegation, partner, and guest in this room to engage fully, question rigorously, and walk with us as we drive this framework into the next phase. With that, I am honored to hand over to our founder and executive director, Adebusui Olutayo Olumadewa, for the statement that anchors today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for that. Distinguished leaders, co-chairs, representatives, colleagues from the UN systems who are here, I can see you, and private sectors. Above all, girls, young women whose future anchors everything here today. I bring you greetings from Lagos, Nigeria, and from the growing community of practice we call the Girls in Energy Project. I speak to you today not to present a program, but to advance a course that intersectionality, properly designed, is not a lens we apply to development after the fact. It is an economy in its own right, one with inputs, outputs, infrastructures, and returns. This is the premise behind the framework we present here, intersectionality as an economy, connecting SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, SDG 9, Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure, SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, and SDG 17, Partnership for Goals, into a single coherent engine of local action and shared progress. The Girls in Energy project was built on a single conviction that girls and young women are not beneficiaries at the emerging of the energy transition. They are its infrastructure. They are organized. We organize this conviction into three pillars ecosystem. Each pillar solving a distinct and practical problem in the pipeline that runs the girls' first exposure to STEM and to eventual seat at the table of the world's energy economy. The Girls in Energy Village, divided into conference, competition, career, camp, and communities. The Girls in Energy Industrial Village, divided into smart energy, green hydrogen, industrial decarbonization. This converts exposure into competence through structured apprenticeship, technical placement with oil and gas, renewables, power, and utilities partners. Built as a working environment, not a classroom simulations. Girls encounter real infrastructure, real safety protocols, and real production pressure. This serves as credentialing bridge between community learning, formal industry entry, closing the gender gaps employers most often cite. This is trained but not exposed. The Girls in Energy Fund, which happens to be the third pillar. This provides scholarship, seed grants, and catalytic capital so that talent identified in the villages is not lost to cost at the point of transition into industrial village or formal employment. Structure to blend philanthropy, corporate, and multilateral capital, treating girls' advancement as an investable asset class rather than a line item in corporate social responsibility. This anchors the long-term financial architecture that allows village and the industrial village to scale beyond single donor cycle or political time. The practical insight I offer delegation partners is this. None of the three pillars work in isolation. A village is without a fund produces awareness without access. An industrial village without village produces isolated placement without pipeline behind them. A fund without both simply becomes a scholarship product, disconnected from industry community. The Girls in Energy ecosystem only becomes an economy when all the three circulate together. This is where the framework ends the name. We do not treat SDG 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17 as five parallel goals that happen to share a stage. We treat their intersection as a productive asset itself, the place where value is actually created. Nigeria is where the framework was built, tested, and refined, not because the challenge is uniquely Nigerian, but because Nigeria's scale, energy sector depth, and youth population make it a rigorous proving ground. Our advice to partners considering replication in threefold. First, anchor before you scale. The village pillar must be genuinely community owned before an industrial village or fund is layered on top of it. Importing the industrial village or fund without local trust produces a program that looks credible on paper and collapses in practice. Second, sequence capital to flow proof, not promise. The fund should expand behind demonstrated placement. This is the path we now walk. Lagos into broader West African corridor. across the continental through our sister economies in East, Southern Africa, and to the wider community of global South nations who share Nigerian demographic weight and its energy ambition. The destination is not Nigerian program with international observer. It's a global South owned economy of girls in energy, of which Nigeria was simply the first proof of concept. No framework of this ambition is carried by one office or one country desk. I want to use this I want to use this platform to formally appreciate the individuals whose keen sight has shaped this next phase of the Girls in Energy project. To the President of Congo, Dr. Peter Petrisius, we thank you for your great support. To the Vice President, International Affairs, Ola Oluyinka, for the strategic clarity and institutional stewardship that has kept this project anchored to its mission, even as its scope has grown. To our global working committee, to our global working group, co-chairs, Atsi and Dr. Page, for the technical rigor and cross-border partnership judgment that gave the working group charter its credibility across sector and geographies. And to Titilayo, whose insight has been instrumental in shaping the framework you see presented here today. It is with their keen sight, with the trust of the delegations, partners, and communities gathered at the HLPF 2026 side event that we now drive Girls in Energy project into next phase, from framework to funded infrastructure, from Nigeria to Africa, and from Africa to Global South. We invite you to walk this path with us. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you for those remarks. Appreciate it. So we're going to move on now, or we're going to go and take some statement from some of our distinguished guests here as we, getting started. And before we do that, I also want to acknowledge all of our guests that are present virtually right now. There's a lot of attendees, so we just want to acknowledge you as well. Thank you for joining. Without further ado, we're going to take some statement from our distinguished guests, either present or virtually as well. The first distinguished guest I'm going to invite for a statement is Dr. Andres Baz. Please welcome Dr. Andres Baz for a statement.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and especially the one who's online, because a lot of them couldn't make it. They do it online. Excellencies, colleagues, and friends. When we hear the word intersectionality, many immediately think of gender, diversity, or social inclusion. While those dimensions are important, I would like to invite you to see intersectionality through a different lens. Intersectionality is not merely a framework for inclusion. It is the operating model of the emerging global economy. Today's challenges no longer exist in isolation, because water cannot be separate from energy, energy cannot be separate from climate, climate cannot be separated from food security, technology cannot be separated from education. And none of these can be separated from women, youth, local community, and public policy. A future economy will not be built in isolated sectors. It will be built on interconnected systems. This is why integration is no longer optional. It is an economy imperative. Every time we connect sectors, institutions, and communities, we multiply returns. Every time we invest in women and girls, we expand productivity, innovation, and resilience. Every time we empower local communities to lead solutions, we create assets that strengthen national economies and contribute to global prosperity. Intersectionality teaches us that development is not a collection of separate goals. It is a network of mutual reinforcement investment. $1 invested in clean water improves health because better health improves education. Education strengthens innovation. Innovations create jobs, reduce poverty, contributes to peace and social stability. That is not simply social progress. That is economy value creation. The Sustainable Development Goals were never intended to function as 17 independent objectives. They were designed as one integrated ecosystem where progress in one area accelerates progress across many others. As leaders, policymakers, and practitioners, our challenge is no longer to ask which SDG should we prioritize? How do we design policy that create value across multiple SDGs? Because the future belongs to countries, institutions, and communities that understand one simple truth. Integration creates resilience. Inclusion creates productivity. Local action generates global impact. That is the economy of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bass. And our next distinguished guest who's going to give a statement is President Jonas Sturka. Please come up for your statement.
Thank
President
you very much.
Jonas.
Thank you very much. I believe
online, yeah.
hear me. Are you hear me very well?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you.
Okay, sounds good. First of all, good morning, good afternoon. I've been second time been here. In pleasure to be here. My name is Janos Stojko, founder and president for the World Roma Federation. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, although I would like to thank you, organizer, for inviting me to speak today. It's an honor to join this important discussion on sustainable community and local development. Today, we are asking an important question. How can build communities that are modern, sustainable, and good for people? From the World Roma Federation point of view, the answer is simple. Technology is not enough. People must be at the center of the development. Every community already has in knowledge. People know how to build, how to work together, and how to use local research. We should not lose this knowledge. We should combine it with modern technology. This is how we can build stronger and better community. At the World Roma Federation, we are now developing new ideas new idea called the Integrated Sustainable Community Development Model. Our goal is not only to build houses, our goal to build better community. Community where family can live safely, where children can study, where women have opportunity, where young people can find job, and where local people can build their own future. Our model brings together many important parts: affordable eco-housing, clean energy, clean water, local farming, community health, education skills, small business, digital technology, and stronger local leadership. All these parts work together. For example, we can use local earth brick to build affordable homes. We can install solar panel to produce clean electricity. We can collect rainwater. We can use clean cooking solution. We can create training center when young people learn new skills. They are not separate projects. They are one community system. We believe that succeed is not only about buildings. It's only about electricity. Real success is when people have better life, when community became stronger, when women, young people became leaders, when local community can continue their own development. This is why partnerships are so important. Government cannot do this in alone. Community cannot do this in alone. International organization cannot do this in alone. We must work together. The World Roma Federation is ready to work with government, the United Nations, civil society, university, and the private sectors. Together, we build pilot community that shows sustainable development can improve people's life. Our vision is simple: better community, better opportunity, and better future. Because sustainable development is such a whole only when the community is no one left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jonas. Thank you for those remarks. Those were great. I'm going to, at this moment, I'm going to invite for some remarks. So in the house this afternoon, we have, well, it's still almost afternoon. This morning, we have the president of Congo. Congo is a conference of NGO in consultative status with the United Nations. So we have the person of the president of Congo in the house who's going to be giving us some remarks. Dr. Peter Preciosis. Come on, please welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. I am certainly pleased to be here with Congo board member Alitayo from Do the Dream. We have another board member in the audience, Rebecca Irby. Very excited about the work that we're doing at Co-NGO here at the High Level Political Forum these past 2 weeks. We've done a soft launch, and I don't know if you've heard about that yet, on a civil society leadership, civil society media desk and Congo Learning Institute. I was just with Dr. Holly Shaw this morning at Hadassah, one of our member organizations, talking with them about how to get more engaged in the work that we're doing. And we had a really interesting conversation about it's overdue now to stop talking and make things happen, to begin to scale up the work of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have released a report this week. We had a parallel event yesterday at the Church Center. I know we have a QR code. You can go on to the Co-NGO website to learn about the survey that we did of our nearly 600 NGOs. I think we had about a little over a 10% response rate to our survey, talking about the work that we're doing, that our NGOs are doing around the world. My NGO that I am the president and CEO of, True Merit, sits at the intersection of migration and health workforce development. And these are really important issues in the world as we look at the resilience and sustainability of health systems worldwide. The ones that power that are the health workforce. And when we talk about health workforce delivery, you can't talk about health workforce policy and delivery without looking at mobility and migration. And these are the things that we work on at our NGO, but at Co-NGO, we're a collective. What we focus on is the work at the intersection of these issues, the intersection of health, gender, social justice, spiritual well-being and healing, climate, migration, displacement. These are really critically important issues. And as we begin to renew and refresh the organization so that it stays relevant into the future, these are issues that we'll be working on. So we look forward to working with all of you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up and present.
Thank you, President Preciosis. That was great remarks. We're going to bring up our panelists at this time to the stage. There's so many important conversations to have around all of the things that we've been talking about. So we're just going to start to kind of add, a lot more flesh to the conversation today. So I have the honor to bring up to the stage panelists. I'm going to start from Dr. Jeremy McNally. Put your hands together. He's online right now, so a lot of these people are both going to be online and in person. Of course, you've heard President Peter speak, joining us also on the panel. Also virtually joining us today, we have Dr. Blessing Ayemere, all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. And I also like to invite my partner, Arti Aluwali, all the way from India, also joining us virtually. Put your hands together for Arti. Let me also invite Yuko Kudo, who's also joining us virtually as well. Yuko is joining us on the stage now. Also, Otto Starsman. Thank you, everyone. And maybe the last, not the least, though, Dr. Bass. Thank you, distinguished panelists. So we are on to a great conversation today. And the first panel discussion would focus on SDG 6 and 7. So we're gonna kind of throw out some questions and have the mic help us do the rest of the justice, especially for those who are in the room right now and for those who are joining us virtually. So this discussion is going to focus on water, smart energy systems. We're going to take some time to kind of dissect some of the topics in there. But it just said the parameters. Intersectionality is not just a framework, right? It is our present-day emergence as a global economy. Integration multiplies returns. Gender inclusion is a productivity gain, and local action is a global access. So this panel isn't really about just electricity. It is about life systems. Energy and water together create the most elementary conditions for life. So here are the questions for the panelists today. And the first question will be, what changes when we stop thinking of water and energy as a separate services or provisions and begin treating them as one living system that sustains community? So what changes when we stop thinking of water and energy as a separate service or services or provisions and begin treating them as one living system that sustains communities? What are the changes? What do you see as the changes?
I can start on that one. I believe I'm Jeremy McNally. It's nice to see all of you. I believe the biggest shift is that we stop solving individual problems and start building resilient communities. Water can't exist without energy. Energy systems often depend on water. Agriculture depends on both, right? And healthcare depends on both. Education depends on both. Economic opportunity depends on both. So Relief Alliance, a nonprofit that my son and I started some years back, we work with communities. We don't simply ask, do people have electricity, or do they have clean water? We ask a broader question: can this community actually thrive? If a school has electricity but no clean water, children are struggling to learn. Typically, if a medical clinic has water but unreliable power, vaccines end up spoiling and medical equipment becomes unusable. If farmers have irrigation but no affordable energy to pump water, food security remains fragile. So ultimately, treating these as one living system changes how governments, nonprofits, and businesses invest. Instead of funding isolated projects, we begin investing ultimately in resilient ecosystems that improve health, education, food security, economic opportunity, and environmental sustainability simultaneously. So this approach ultimately recognizes that infrastructure is not the end goal. Human flourishing is.
Thank you, Dr. Jeremy, for those remarks. Thanks for helping us understand the question. I do also have Artie, who actually has distinguished work within this field. I'm gonna just pass it over to Artie to moderate this panel session from here.
Great.
Thank you, Artie.
Thank you so much for opening the entire discussion, and I quite agree with Dr. Jeremy and the previous speakers also who came and gave the high-level statement. Now, when we look at what is going on at the high-level political forum this year, I think the forum that sat together has been asking this question: how do we redesign implementation? Yes. For a more unified Earth system. So in that context, I think it is extremely important that we understand what intersectionality really means. When you look at water and energy nexus in the world, I think we are yet to gain our control over the traditional wicked problems while our challenges are actually getting to the next level. So when you look at water, for now, we've been talking about in the context of SDGs about water provisioning, clean water, water wastage, water pollution, and all of that. But now this nexus is becoming very strong, and specifically when we want to power our data centers, when we are encroaching on residential areas to build these data centers. So water is becoming the critical infrastructure for energy transition, and that packs in local communities. And like Dr. Jeremy rightly said, that packs in healthcare, the public health aspect. So when you look at the whole idea of how do we rely on communities, we need to offer a seat at the table to the communities that get affected and who actually are the custodians of the piece of land where water is being used. So it is about that stewardship. So stewardship is another idea that is closely related to how intersectionality should ideally be viewed, because stewardship is not just a person's internal voice or internal commitment. Stewardship also has to be inspired. So when you're looking at inspiring stewardship in the context of water as a critical infrastructure of the now and the future, and definitely the past that we've done really big mistakes with, we've got green hydrogen opportunities coming up. We've got battery tech, we've got solar, semiconductor, and all of these, even thermal for that matter. So when you look at how are we engaging with the communities, to my mind, I think we've had literally zero engagement. And that is the shift that needs to make. So we want to understand intersectionality in the context of energy, water energy nexus. And I think Africa, the global South, we have so many indigenous systems, indigenous technologies that have been overlooked for the longest time. In fact, have been dismissed as archaic ideas. And so that is literally the disconnect. And I love saying this, that since the cave era, we've been traders and tool makers, we will never fail at it. What we've been failing at is the collective intention that we need to demonstrate for any kind of a wicked problem or a small problem, or the kind of resources that need to be deployed for how the future should be. So I hope that somewhere aligns with the question that you asked, Ola. Ola, would you just transition and then I'll take over?
Thank you. Thank
you.
It just took me a while to get to the mic. Thank you.
Not a
I also have a distinguished guest online right now, all the way from Lagos, Nigeria, for a quick, a remark or presentation. So everyone, please help me welcome Dr. Blessing Ayomere, joining us from Nigeria. Dr. Blessing.
Right. Greetings to everyone, and thank you for putting this together and the thoughts that have been shared. I think at this time we are all engaging in the very critical subject matter and looking at how the subject matter can advance, inclusion globally. So looking at what we are here speaking about today, I want to say that first and foremost, we need to reframe the issue of intersectionality. And it is not merely just a framework, like we already know, and some thoughts have been said about it. I think it's about the architecture of our present day, how the economy is designed. It is the reality of how we are living today. And also, it is no longer just an idea that we debate, but it is what we face every day. How do these variables interrelate, and how are we able to bring them, to promote, the values that we see, especially when it comes to the the gas in energy. So across continents, markets, and communities, we see a clear pattern, and that pattern is about the integration of multipliers and returns that we see. When we connect these dots, we are able to make progress. I will speak about three things as it relates to what have been said today. When we look at the water issue, and then we look at the energy issue, as it were, also. I want to speak about the fact that there are three things that quickly comes to mind. One is the fact that if we can connect these two, water and energy, we will see efficiency increase, all right? Because as you build infrastructure, if the planning, from the planning stage, you are planning for dealing with water, you can also actually scale that infrastructure to deal with energy. So what it means is that we are not wasting time and resources in doing things that can go in parallel. And that is very important. We are able to gather data, both primary and secondary data that we need. The second thing is that, and I think my friend that spoke earlier spoke about that, is about resilience and sustainability. We begin to see communities that they have the basic structure to be resilient and to thrive in sustainability. We see people that when they have the basics of life, water and energy, actually, they are the basics of life. They give us the ability. I mean, you can live without eating for days, but I'm not sure you can survive without water. So the moment we put that together, and for the energy part of it, it helps us to be creative. People are able to think, they're able to try their hands on things. So when we bring that together, we build resilience into the community, into the system. And then what happened, therefore, is that we have community that are able to grow and advance beyond what they currently are experiencing today, especially with the focus on the gas in energy. So today I want to talk about the fact that we are doing the right thing. We are having this conversation, but it should not stop there. It should not stop in debates. we should move from debates, we should move from conversation to action, because they are no longer just the things that are fragmented. Water and energy can actually trigger the growth that we need, especially in communities in Africa where the girl child has been relegated. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would quite agree with you on that. So Ola, would you like me to continue, or are you transitioning us?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay, so this is interesting because when we talk about intersectionality, clearly, if we were to put energy in the center of all the necessary transition that we need to undergo, because, well, we need to power our factories, we need to power our homes and hospitals and schools and all of it. My mind tells me that we need to put energy at the center and pan out into infrastructure, into energy technologies, into food systems, into let's say the waste management, the water leadership and stewardship that we require, the well-being of the societies. Because clearly in the world today, even if you look at the well-being challenge, it is not so much internal. It is clearly a response to poor institutional systems. So most of the people, when you see that this whole mental health challenge is emerging in the world far greater than before, what kind of conditions can we consider that will enable these local communities, not external factors, local communities to sustain solutions over time? I think that should be the critical next question that we can deliberate on.
I was going to comment. I think all the comments are excellent, and looking at this water energy nexus from the perspective of social justice is really important, because what we see around the world are populations that are traditionally disenfranchised suffer from inadequate water and energy resources. We frequently in higher resource countries talk about the digital divide and how that's separating us more and more. Well, if without energy, we're not going to have the ability to power a digital economy, which will further create these social justice inequities. So really, I think from, just to reiterate a lot of what was already said by a number of these a number of these individuals, if we could help to reduce those inequities, I think that will really help to power many of the other sustainable development goals.
I believe what changes is when we stop thinking of water and energy as a separate services and begin treating them as one living system, sustained community. Because every changes we make, every move, infrastructure to managing its resilience. Like you just said, we cannot separate them. Water and energy are not independent sectors, and because energy need to pump, to treat, and distribute water, while water is essential to producing energy. It's mean when policymaker plan that separate, that's what the chaos began. Because the strengthen it, it help you with your health, agriculture, education, economy, development. Um, that is the power of intersectionality because Zala also designed integrate system that project multiple social and economic benefits on a single investment. Like when we talk about water, we have to think water and energy is the same. Especially we go into those AI, and I tell people how you think AI is working. You need energy, you need water, and if we don't know how to conserve them at this moment, we will not even have a security of having food security, but we will get water problem, we will get health problem, we will get economic problem. That's when we need to start thinking them as a one system instead of separate.
You know, I have something to say on this too. Our goal shouldn't be to build dependence. It should be to build communities that no longer need us. I think it starts with three conditions. The first is collaboration. Communities thrive when governments, nonprofits, businesses, educators, local leaders, they work together instead of in silos. Second is opportunity. That means access to education, STEM programs, clean water, reliable energy, and the resources people need, not just to survive, but to build better futures. And then third is ownership. The people in the community need to be a part of designing, implementing, and leading the solutions. When communities have ownership, they don't just maintain systems, they improve them and they pass them on to the next generation. So when those three conditions come together, collaboration, opportunity, and ownership, you create resilient communities that are capable of sustaining themselves and continuing to grow.
Thank you. Thank you for this. While we're still on, I want to quickly take a moment to recognize a distinguished guest, here with us today, in the name of I'm sorry, I don't want to get the name wrong. David Levitt, thank you for coming. We appreciate your presence. Thank you. All right, moving on. So thank you for all those wonderful remarks around, water, smart energy as a smart energy system. I think we continue to, learn from this insight, and even as we do the work of, we do the work of local action and all of that. And without, there's still a question I can probably just throw out to the group before we move on to the next panel. And that question would be, now maybe one or two questions, but I'll start with the first. What have communities, especially women and young people, taught us about designing and governing these living systems differently? So I'll throw it off to the panel. What have communities, especially women and young people, taught us about designing and governing these living systems differently? What are we learning differently?
One lesson we've consistently seen is that people closest to the challenges, they often have the clearest understanding of sustainable solutions. Yeah, pretty often, development happens to communities rather than with communities. Women frequently manage household water, family health, food preparation, caregiving, and young people bring innovation, often technical curiosity, long-term commitment, because they're going to inherit these systems. So, when those voices aren't there and they're absent, solutions may work on paper, but they'll generally fail in practice. Our nonprofit Relief Alliance, we believe community ownership creates sustainability. Whether we're supporting STEM education or youth leadership or humanitarian initiatives, we've ultimately learned that when local people participate in planning, implementation, and long-term governance, projects last longer because the community sees them as their own rather than someone else's project. And young people especially, they remind us that innovation isn't limited by age. Given education, mentorship, opportunity, they do become the designers, the problem solvers, and future leaders rather than simply the beneficiaries. And women remind us that resilience is measured not by infrastructure alone, but by whether families actually experience improved quality of life. Those perspectives make systems stronger because they're grounded in everyday reality rather than assumptions.
Great. In fact, very interesting point that you make. I remember reading about this interesting concept called the water roller that was developed by two women in Africa, specifically to help pregnant women carry water across tough terrains. And the design was built based on design thinking principles. So when you look at young people, when you expose them to the right kind of tools, you equip them to observe and recognize challenges and then get to the solutioning. Because I think the younger generation is also becoming saturated with the traditional way in which they're expected to perform and become and claim careers. We need that those kind of knowledge systems, not just the disciplined, STEM education, definitely, but more to the ground, more fundamental, more closer to the earth tools and approaches that help people come forward and take pride in crafting solutions because now they genuinely feel equipped. It is about attributing the life location, is what I call it. People today, we do not recognize what our life location is. What are those parameters that define us? And that is possibly one of the biggest blind spots collectively that we suffer from. Another aspect that I'd like to bring in here is the language that we've been using. So sustainability, yes, it is one of the hot terms that we use. But personally speaking, I think the term is extremely non-directional for us to choose and sort of discern if we are, making the right choices. And honestly, in my line of work, I've been replacing the word sustainability with nature reverence. Are we reverent enough? Do we recognize how significant or insignificant we are in your distributed measure? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody, another question here about this system. And that question is, what evidence from the ground convinces you that investing in girls strengthens the long-term resilience of these systems? What evidence from the ground convinces you that investing in girls strengthens the long-term resilience of these systems?
I mean, one of the most consistent findings across international development is that investing in girls creates benefits that extend far beyond one individual. When girls have access to education, particularly, STEM education and other types of education, communities gain future engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, teachers, healthcare professionals, and civic leaders. Educated girls are more likely to improve family health outcomes. Like I mentioned before, participate in the workforce, contribute to local economies, and reinvest in their communities. And, I believe that shapes our work with youth because we don't see education as simply preparing someone for a job. We see it as preparing future leaders, who's going to ultimately solve problems we haven't solved yet. So when girls understand science, engineering, environmental stewardship, and technology, they become part of designing a better water system, clean energy solutions, stronger healthcare systems, and more resilient local economies. And that's why investing in girls isn't simply about equity. It's about one of the smartest long-term resilience investments any nation can make. And when we invest in girls today, we're investing in the people who will manage tomorrow's infrastructure, lead tomorrow's institutions, and strengthen tomorrow's communities.
All right. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. This is, the end of our first panel. Everyone, please put your hands together for our panelists who has helped us to kind of help understand the water system, the energy system. I think that's been, great conversation, great insight. So we thank you. All right. Without further ado, we're going to move on to the next panel discussion. But before we do, I'd like to introduce a very good colleague and partner in the work of Girls and Energy in the name of Dr. Page, who is joining us online. Dr. Page, I don't know if you have some comments to get us started with, and then we'll dive into the panel discussions proper. Dr. Page,
Thank you so very much. I'm so excited to be here today and to see this happening. So I'll just do a little intro. So Excellencies, distinguished guests, fellow panelists, partners, and advocates, good afternoon. And I'm excited to be here. It's a privilege to join this important conversation on the SDG 9. And I'm going to be speaking from the lens of the Girls in Energy Project as the global co-chair of the global working group. I will be talking about the Girls in Energy, and I'll be building up from the CSW and the STI forum because our message was clear at both fora. It was time for us to move from conversations to impact, and that message is even more urgent now. With 2030 around the corner, and the Sustainable Development Goals still off track. We cannot afford fragmented innovations anymore or symbolic inclusions. We actually need implementation, we need skill, we need financing, that's very critical, and we need systems that work for the communities most at risk of being left behind. And I was so excited to listen to the previous panel because they had already helped us establish that making these integrated systems, making them work, it's very critical and it's very important. And so the next thing we're talking about in this panel is who's going to build those systems, right? And the answer for me would be the girls. So, because we cannot build the systems without the girls, and someone said that in its previous panel that they don't have we want them to be not only beneficiaries of the systems, we don't want them to be students that are being prepared for the workforce or as participants in short-term programs, but we want them to be positioned as builders, as innovators, technicians, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, owners, and leaders of the technologies shaping the energy transition. And this is why the Girls in Energy matters. Energy is not just about electricity, energy is dignity, energy is education, energy is health, energy is safety, energy is productivity, and energy is economic power. When we see a girl that cannot study at night because there's no electricity, energy poverty becomes an education issue. When healthcare can't store vaccines, take care of emergency procedures, it becomes a health issue. So it more than a health issue, more of a survival issue. And when businesses cannot scale because energy is unaffordable and unavailable, it becomes an economic issue. And today, as we're watching the World Cup, we're reminded of something very powerful, and that is energy is also visibility. The World Cup is not only a sporting event, it is a global infrastructure story. Stadium lights need power. Broadcasting systems need power. If we don't have power today, we're not going to be having this session we're having today because I'm not going to be sitting in Canada and speaking to everybody there today. Internet networks need power. Hotels, airports, restaurants, public viewing centers, transport systems, security systems, mobile phones, televisions, and data platforms, they all depend on energy. Millions of people across the world are able to access and watch their favorite teams and players because energy makes that global connection possible. For a young girl in an underserved community, watching the World Cup can mean more than watching a match. It can mean exposure, it can mean imagination, it can mean seeing discipline, excellence, leadership, teamwork, and possibility on a global stage. It can help her believe that where she comes from does not have to limit where she can go, but she needs power to see it. She needs power to study, she needs power to access internet, she needs power in her school, in her home, in her healthcare center, in her community, and eventually in the industries where she will work and create, manufacture, and lead. And that's why the Girls in Energy ecosystem becomes very important because it's not just a community development idea, it is an implementation engine. It shows what becomes possible when energy access, girls' educations, women economic empowerment, healthcare, sports, digital access, agriculture, local enterprise are brought together under one structured model. Imagine the impact on the community powered by a 10 megawatt mini grid, young girls being able to read at any time without depending on candles, schools with lights, fans, computers, internet, water being pumped into homes and communities, and street lights at night, hospitals operating 24 hours. So you just can't begin to imagine what that is because that's not just electricity, that is transformation. And so the biggest barrier for me is not about the talent, It's not about intelligence. It's not about creativity. The biggest barrier for us will be access, and access to quality education, to infrastructure, to mentors, to capital, to technology, access to role models, access to safe spaces, and access to decision-making rooms. That's why this funding we're looking for, the catalytic funding, is very critical for us, because it's important that without it, we cannot deliver the transformation we desire at scale. Without it, we cannot activate the Girls in Energy Village. Without it, we cannot activate the Girls in Energy industrial ecosystem. So we need every stakeholder here today, and that's where the private sector investment also comes in, because energy transition requires technology, manufacturing, logistics, finance, maintenance, distribution, and market development. So girls and women must not be left behind that value chain. They must be intentionally placed inside it as innovators, suppliers, entrepreneurs, owners, and leaders. So my call today is simple. Let us stop asking whether girls belong in energy. Let us build the systems that make their leadership inevitable. Let us stop treating energy access as a standalone infrastructure issue. It is connected to education, healthcare, gender equality, sports, industrialization, innovation, safety, and economic growth. And as the World Cup reminds us, talent reaches the world when infrastructure makes visibility possible. The same is true for girls. Potential without power remains hidden. Potential without education remains underdeveloped. Potential without access remains excluded. Potential without investment remains delayed. The Girls in Energy exists to change that. It exists to energize community, unlock possibility, position girls not only as beneficiaries of the energy transition, but as builders of the systems that will sustain it. As we move forward to 2030, we do not have luxury of slow, symbolic action. We need implementation, we need partnership, we need financing, we need accountability, and most importantly, we need to trust girls not only as the future of development, but as builders of the systems that will sustain it. Thank you all so much for being here today. I know that we have really, really strong hands and powerful people here today. And I know that if we all work together as a team and collaborate, then we're going to be able to build an ecosystem that will transcend the 2030 agenda. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Page, for those remarks and those insights. We appreciate it. Moving on, in our panel two, the panelists, I'm going to invite the next person on our next panel to give a short remark. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Yuko Kudo for our remarks.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be here. I am an artist, so I'm bringing a little bit different perspective, which is exactly, I think, and I hope that what we can do in this conversation about intersectionality, in this conversation of seeing economics and seeing the future in a different way. And I would love for us to start by the conversation of this is something that already mentioned. What does each word mean? Like sustainability sounds good, feels good, but what it means for me is different for what it means for you, what it means for you, and what it means for everybody. Everybody has a different definition. And same thing goes with education. And in terms of education, and I think what we can do is really listening from the girls, listening from the women, listening from the allies who are supporting this movement, and how can we learn from that? So maybe we can shift the meaning of education and deeper that conversation so that we can approach this more holistically, focusing on the curiosity, focusing on the girl's passion. Earlier, when the video was playing, everybody has a different definition of what technology is, what creation is, what sustainability means. So these girls are so powerful and so creative. And as someone who are holding the education or educator or whatever the position that we hold as an adult, which often seen as an educator, we can learn so much for these girls. We can learn from the peer mentorship. We can learn from apprenticeship and have them the opportunity to speak that their words matter, their creation matters, their process, their system, and their contribution matters. I think that way of seeing education as more holistic and more emerging experience for the young folks, that is going to be super powerful and empowering. And I often hear in these conversations, STEM conversation, and I would love for us to encourage everyone to add A in it and STEAM from STEAM into, yeah, STEM to STEAM. And so that art, creativity, and their messagings can change, how they communicate about energy, how they communicate about education change. And we can all learn from them. And just to add to that, I think when we talk about girls and energy and changing the infrastructure, we can always learn so much from who are already championing that work. All our colleagues are doing incredible work and can learn so much. And because we cannot do this alone, we cannot all do this by coming together and seeing the connection, seeing intersection as in what impact can we make? Because I'm an artist and I'm not in the energy sector, but some of the principle that we talk about here is very much same in other industry, whether that is a health, whether that in arts, whether that in technology, and as in like AI and all these emerging technology that's coming into art and performing arts and TV and film industry. It's all the same. The conversation will always parallel, and we can learn from that. So I am very humbled by this conversation and how we are interweaving this knowledge from each other and continue to learn and create space for us to learn from the girl, for the allies, and learn from the allies. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yuko. Thank you for those insights. We appreciate it. And that's great. And inviting third panelists here for a short remark and intro. I want to invite Sweta Gupta, who's joining us remotely. And for those of you who don't know, Sweta Gupta is also an energy executive, entrepreneur, and engineer, also an international speaker, author, and global advocate for sustainable development. She's a founder and the CEO of Gridless Global, an organization that's dedicated to advancing clean energy and energy education and sustainable infrastructure, while empowering women and young people to become leaders in the global energy. So everyone, please help me welcome for a short remark, Sweta Gupta.
A very good afternoon to everyone. I'm very honored to join here. My remark on gender inclusive and innovation and industry today is my own story about becoming this engineer from ground one. My father, he worked in hydropower plants, and that curiosity with machines led me to become something. It led me to transform and break those barriers of my society and not listen to the voices that dragged me down and helped me spearhead those, and education was primarily one of them. I graduated with electrical engineering, then I did my MBA. I worked in 1,000 megawatt coal fired power plant where there were just 3 to 5 women in 500 men, and sometimes there were barriers. They were
Recording stopped.
About things, but I transversed and became something, and it is something that I want to give back to the community. Through Relief Alliance, we do STEM education. Through Gridless Global, we build
Recording
power
in
plants.
progress.
And through media, we become a advocate for messaging and streamlining those thoughts and incentives to women. And one of the barriers I believe that has definitely become a bottleneck for many women to come up is the perception, is the way they are being treated, is the way they think that they cannot do it. But to be honest, they are they have to be just skillful, they have to be just educated to solve those problems, to do those mathematics and gain that confidence. And that confidence leads to direction, that confidence leads to breaking barriers and changing lives. And with women, you cannot just changing one life, with women you're changing life of a family, because that transforms when a child looks up to a woman in education and energy, the whole growth and development is different. So I'm very thankful here to be a part of this panel today, and I hope that together we can come and build those initiatives, momentum to bring change and value to women in energy industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sweta. Thank you. Put your hands together for Sweta again. I appreciate it. Yeah, so we're going to move on and dive into the second panel and, begin to kind of dissect, the questions that I think we all want to, learn from as we discuss, as we have these discussions. What I want to also note is that, I know we have our panelists on this, but we also want to make sure that, our other panelists, Dr. Blessing, Dr. Baz, we like to still have you engaged in this as well. We'll love your insights, on these subjects. So on the second panel, what we're going to be talking about is regarding, gender inclusive innovation and industry. That now that we've, established, especially from the previous panel, that, that integrated system, the next question becomes, who will build them? So I guess my first question here, and then going to the panelists, and of course, other panelists are from the previous panel, feel free to contribute. So the first question is, if girls are essential to the future energy economy, what must change in education so curiosity becomes technical capabilities and meaningful career? If girls are essential to the future of energy economy, which we've established, what must change? What has to change in education so that curiosity becomes, technical capability and meaningful career?
So, what I say is basically when we're in school, they tell us, oh, there's a solar system, right? What we need to change is how education is done, not just telling you about solar system, but showing you how the solar system, how you can channel solar system or the energy from the sun and convert it to energy that can be used in your homes. Let them have access to visiting sites, energy like maybe what do we call it? Generation sites, power generation sites, power generation factories. Let them have access to be able to see how energy is being produced, see how technology is evolving, be a participant. So it's not just about reading about it, but being actively involved. Let the educational system bring in practicality into it and ensure the girls are a strong part of it, because you can have a whole demography excluded and you expect growth. And girls are the ones that understand the needs the most because they are the ones that use most of these resources the most. So you also need to make sure that they get access to mentorship, they get access to practical demonstrations, see what possibilities exist, how they can convert the natural resources they have around them into valuable resource that they can use to energize their communities financially, economically, and also power their communities with electricity if they have to.
Thank you, Dr. Page. Dr. Blessing, do you have any remarks?
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's important to actually drill down a little bit and see that for the girl child or for the woman, we should not treat them as separate entity. Whatsoever is open to the male child or the male folks should actually also be open to the woman, all right, or the girl child, whether it's in education, whether it's in business, whether it's in career. Like somebody mentioned, you cannot exclude, a whole generation or a gender out of the mix, and you expect to get the best. I always, when I have two daughters, and interestingly, they attended off in the school. Sometimes when I go to the function and I see that they are being addressed and told you must stand up, I say, I don't think that should be the message. They are human, number one. They should have equal rights. They should have equal opportunity. I don't think we should in any way create any seclusion. There should be equality. There should be access, all right? And that is where we begin to make progress. What we are dealing with now is a backlog of, exclusion, especially in the Africa continent, where the male child were given the support to go to school and the females were left behind. So there's a gap that we need to fill. But going forward, why we design to fill the gap that has been created, we must also ensure that equality and inclusion is what we preach, is what we push, all right? In Nigeria today, in some sectors, you see that the women folks, they are performing exceptionally because they bring everything together. The woman can think and multitask. They have emotion. They look just beyond the naira and the kobo. They look at the interconnectivity of things, and that is what we need to build an inclusive society. So let us not see the women as just preparing an opportunity for them to get jobs. No, they are entrepreneurs. They should be prepared as such. They are leaders, and there should not be some jobs that are exclusive for men that women cannot do. All right. If a girl say, I can be opportunity to compete in that space, to be involved in that space. If they say I can be a minor, they should be given the access, the opportunity. There should not be any seclusion when it comes to treating the girl child. I mean, energy, water, access, predictability of the economy should be all inclusion for everybody. So I like this conversation, but my call also is the fact that we must continue to call for equality and inclusion. The girl child is not inferior in any way, and they should not be treated as such, as inferior. They have the same capability. All we need is equal opportunity and equal access. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing. No, I think those are, very, very critical, things to note. Equality is very important, and, all of the other things that you mentioned. So thank you for those insights. I think on this question, we could probably take one more or two more comment on this. So I don't know if any of the other panelists has anything to interject here. Sweta, Jeremy, I don't know.
Yeah, I do, and Sweta, please, So I really agree with you, Dr. Blessing. If girls are essential to the future of energy economy, then education alone isn't enough. We have to create opportunity, and that means giving girls access to STEM education, mentorship, internships, entrepreneurship, and leadership opportunities. It also means ensuring that they have a seat at the table when decisions are being made, not just a place in the classroom. We ultimately, I believe we need to stop asking how we prepare girls to participate in the energy economy and start asking how we empower them to lead it. And when girls have the knowledge, the support, and the opportunity to innovate, entire communities benefit. But that's all I have for that.
Thank you, Dr. Jeremy.
On my end, it's just like I think lack of capital and funding to the women can be very detrimental because sometimes it brings a lot of confidence to move ahead and pursue those careers. And the technical considerations and limitations are real. Like if you need to learn something, you need to have access to it, and there is a huge lack of capital that is there. And that is one of the things that can be changed in education, is boost funding for women and giving them a clear path and vision. Like, this thing works, it worked for me, it works for things and women. So I believe we have a lot of things that we can come together, addressing the challenges, listening to the stories, and working at the grassroots to see those real impacts being created. So that's my take on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to quickly move on to the next question to the panel. How do we move beyond preparing girls to work in industry and instead enable them to become inventors? How do we move beyond preparing girls to work in the industry and instead we enable them to become inventors, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, and owners of the technology shaping transition?
I think I could say a couple words about that. Of course, I'm going to be speaking a little more on the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, which is about partnerships, but that plays directly into this because my area of expertise is getting the capital into the projects. And as the last commenter just said, without appropriate capital, funding, and financing, none of this works. So boosting capital that goes into the work that women and girls want to do as entrepreneurs, manufacturers, innovators, and so on, means a willingness to put capital at risk. And that has to be done by building the appropriate level of accountability into the system from the design stage. When you have the big idea, you now have to figure out how to make that big idea financeable and build the accountability model from the beginning that ensures that there's a way to guarantee that the money that's needed to empower women and girls to do what they would like to do is there. There's got to be an accountability mechanism built in from the beginning, otherwise it just isn't going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's great. And the final question on this, what is the single biggest barrier preventing talented girls from becoming leaders in the renewable energy economy? And what would removing that barrier unlock?
So, Ola, I'd like to come in, and before I actually share what I have in mind, I would rather invite Yuko to share her experience about a film that she had made called Dear Asian Girls. I would really like Yuko to share with us what kind of impressions, and I think it's like the elephant in the room when you talk about what the barriers are. The barriers are nothing but the stigma. So Yuko, would you like to share with us your experience working on the film?
Sure. Thank you, Artie. I think it kind of combining it, weaving that into this answer as well. The film that I just mentioned is called Dear Asian Girls, and it really told the story of Asian theater performers and how stigma and how current situation, how economic and opportunity, everything impacted. So it really follows this story. And one thing that really ties into the barrier is the lack of imagination, because we're so used to seeing men leading this. We're so used to certain figure leading this. Hence, even without knowing it, that representation of I don't see it. And unfortunately, we don't know what we don't know until we know that we don't have it. So it's important that we train ourselves, we challenge each other to see what else can things look like. how other way can we contribute? How can we build a leadership? So always be in the question of sparking the imagination, sparking the curiosity, and challenging ourselves to build what else. And that was inspiration for my documentary Dear Asian Girls as well, and really honing into the idea of what is our shared human experience here. I think Dr. Blessing, when he was talking about the equal opportunity, it's very similar when we rip out all the labels that we share: woman, class, age, everything. When we strip down all of that, what is our human experience? What is our human emotion? And when we educate, or somebody mentioned media earlier, we can educate the whole broader public by doing that work. So it not just become the girls in power and girls in the energy sector, it becomes a whole world. How can we empower everybody? How can we empower everybody to learn and teach each other and witness the impact that we are creating here and we have on each other, so that we can really build the sustainable, I know that I questioned that word earlier, but how can we create the world that we can all support each other collectively and contribute and uplift each other? So the lack of imagination is one of the big barrier I always propose, and we need to challenge each other for that.
Thank you, Yuko. Thank you. And to add, very, very important context to this conversation, I want to bring in, someone who has some insight, and I think the House needs to understand this insight as we talk about this subject, right? I want to invite Rebecca Irby. She's going to give us some insight, add a lot of, quality to what we're talking about today. Rebecca, thank you. Sorry, I think we brought you in too late, but it's okay. I can plug that in.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you all today. If you just give me a moment, I am going to share my screen and share a presentation that we put together for this. And thank you. Thank you. Okay, we got it. All right. So I wanted to begin today to really talk about this understanding. I loved the comment about sustainability. I often have those feelings as well. To me, to sustain means to keep what is current, and I'm not interested in that. So this is about how we build the future and who actually gets to build it. So to me, curiosity is absolutely everywhere. And that is the ingredient that is needed for progress. So when we think about the future and who gets to build it, I want us to truly think about what that looks like in practice. So we keep asking girls to prepare themselves for the future. I want to ask, what if we prepared the future for girls? And I also love that you added STEAM, because my organization is called Peak Institute. We do peace education, art, and culture. And we use art as our main modality for all of the teaching and most of the presentations that we do, because art is our only universal language in the entire world. And if we want to have an impact and help people understand and truly touch their hearts, it's through art. It's not through presentations like this or reports. As important as reports are, we need to read them, we need to write them, but that's not what touches people's hearts. It's art and actually hearing stories from folks on the ground. So again, I want to flip this question about who gets to build the future. Goals can't simply be to train girls to enter an industry that was never created for them. So as we think about innovation, manufacturing, entrepreneurship, I want to think about ownership as well. There's definitely a progression to be made. Curiosity has to become capacity. Capacity has to become opportunity, and opportunity has to lead towards ownership and pathways of ownership. And I'm not talking about owning land, I'm talking about the ownership of that craft. It's something that I can do once I have the skills, that I have the capacity and the opportunity and the infrastructure needed to move forward. We lose young people at every point of those transitions. And that's what we want to talk about. The barrier is not talent by any stretch of the imagination. To me, the barrier is infrastructure. Do we have the tools? Can we actually touch the technology? Do we have the practical skills or just a certificate? Do we know people who can open doors, answer questions, not the questions that are in the handbook, but the actual questions of what it means to be in these sectors in the real world? Can we make our work visible? Are there real pathways after the program ends? We've become really good at creating experiences for young people. I want to ask, and I want us to become much better at creating pathways with young people. Access without infrastructure does not become ownership. So, building that infrastructure, what does that mean and what does that look like? This is a big initiative of what Co-NGO and a number of the NGOs here, my colleagues sitting on this stage, as well as those in the audience. That is what we are in the process of trying to build, the UN and the infrastructure of the future. So with Co-NGO, we're developing the Civil Society Institute, which is a learning and capacity building platform. The idea is actually pretty simple. People shouldn't just arrive into global spaces and be expected to magically just know how everything works. NGOs need institutional literacy. Young people need practical experiences, and communities need ways of preserving and bringing forward their knowledge. People need opportunity, not just to practice their leadership, but to actually embody it before we ask them to lead on a global stage. So we are bringing together the UN, NGOs, and civic journalism, coalition building, youth leadership, and intergenerational learning, along with Indigenous knowledge into this platform and system that we are creating together. But to build this capacity is to actually redesign the table. It's the Institute's way of creating infrastructure and architecture as layers around the foundation of learning, civic journalism, and NGO navigation. Also, very importantly, is this idea and understanding of moving from grant-based work and philanthropy only funded to impact work, which brings me back to this word of ours of sustainable development. And is that truly the word that we want to be using, or is there another way for us to think about that? And lastly, one of the projects of the Institute is the Civil Society Media Desk, because I believe that there is another problem when we talk about infrastructure and the barriers that we have to the work that we all do. So we can do extraordinary work, but what happens after the meeting? What happens when it's not documented and there's no way to access it? A young woman speaking at a meeting, or a community leader sharing 30 years of knowledge, a youth delegation developing new ideas, civil society organizations piloting something extraordinary. We take a picture, we move on. That knowledge that was shared is lost. There's a loss of evidence and, frankly, a loss of economic opportunity. At Co-NGO, we're developing the Civil Society Media Desk as a practical resource where civil society can learn civic journalism, conduct interviews, produce podcasts, and create hybrid events like this one that we are doing here. This event today was supported by the Civil Society Media Desk and our incredible partners at HubCast International and United Earth Networks. This helps and encourages young people to not just be interviewed or the interviewee. They can also be reporters, the producers, the camera operators, the editors, the storytellers, the people building the technology and the systems behind it. This is when media becomes workforce development. This is where storytelling becomes infrastructure. The central proposal specifically envisions youth as fellows, apprentices, reporters, producers, technicians as the emerging leaders that they are, not just as beneficiaries or participants. The Media Desk model includes civic journalism and interview skills, teaching, and accessibility support. So, as we come to a close today, the answer to my question of how do we prepare girls for the future is: don't just invite girls into the future. Build the infrastructure for them to shape it. Give curiosity somewhere to go. Give capacity somewhere to grow. Connect talent to opportunity and create pathways towards ownership. Intersectionality as economy cannot simply mean that we count who is in the room or on the Zoom. It has to change who gets to build, who gets to invest, who gets to document, who gets to own, and mostly who gets to decide what comes next. Talent is not what is in sacred or sacred, no, sacred, scarcity. Talent is not the scarcity. Girls are already curious, they are already imagining, and they are already creating. Our responsibility is to stop building systems that lose them along the way. Let's build classrooms, labs, media desks, and networks and pathways where their ideas can become real. Because when girls don't simply enter the future, but have the power to shape it and own it, the returns don't just compound. The future is changed. And that is the future that we are here to build.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. That was insightful. One more time, can you just put your hands together for Rebecca once again? I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so much said. Even if I just take a step back, even before Rebecca's presentation, while we were, dwelling on the conversation around gender inclusive innovation, but I just want to kind of open it up for the panelists for any additional comment if you have, Dr. Bass, Yuko, Dr. Blessing, anyone, do you have any comments? Additional comments? All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I think my final comments would be to first of all appreciate the work that is being done and the call that is being made. We should move from talking to action, both as organizations and supporters across the board. Let us begin to see how this works. Every day matters, every opportunity matters to advance this cause. Let's together make this happen and make the girl child part of the society and make them also bring the value that God has imputed in them to light. Thank you.
Thank you. My final comments would be there is a power in collaboration, there is power in having role models. So I believe strengthening those pillars would help bring more women in energy industry And I really wait and hope to see a lot of women in energy industry because they bring perspective. They bring something that has not been heard before. And with that, the problems that are existing in this world and alleviating our society can be resolved by bringing people and young people and women and men from all sectors in right collaboration together.
Yeah, and I also have something too. You know, I've been really inspired by today's conversation. I think one theme has come through consistently. We have the ideas, we have the technology, and we have the talent. Now we need the collective will to act. Yeah, every opportunity matters, every partnership matters, every investment in a girl, every mentor, every scholarship, every conversation, and every new project. Moves this cause forward. So I also loved that presentation, Rebecca Irby. It was incredible. And also what was just shared about bringing the value that God has placed within every person to light. I believe every girl has unique gifts, talents, and potential. Our responsibility is to create the opportunities, remove the barriers, and provide the support that allows those gifts to flourish. So I hope that, today's conversation doesn't end when we leave this room. Let's continue building partnerships, sharing resources, and taking meaningful action together. Coming together is incredibly important. When we invest in girls, we're not only changing individual lives, we're strengthening families, communities, and ultimately the future of our entire world. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll just sum everything up. Basically, from everything I've heard, the critical things that we're looking at is partnership, access, visibility, and collaboration to drive in the capital that we need to be able to and advance the Girls in Energy project and also advance community development across the global south while bringing all the girls and women into the ecosystem and making them co-builders and developers of their future, not sitting on the sidelines. So I think that's what it all sums up to for me. Thank you also very much for the contributions.
Thank you, Dr. Page. Dr. Sweta, do you have a final comment before we go to the panelists in the room?
I'm just thankful and honored to be here. It's a dream come true. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dr. Bass, please. You can repeat your comments so that everyone can hear you.
Yes, like it's like amazing for me the way they start talking about, we're shifting, we're going to shift the power because of the idea of since 2015 when we got the SDG to make sure implementation and actions, that's the key of it. But it was becoming like a more celebrity word, like a fancy word instead of action, driving action. That's the way to go. I'm not asking about to not give them accountability. But when you really want the youth to do something, you just don't tell them, you show them the step. Because it's like you're telling me you're going to give me the car without asking me if I got the driver license, if I know how to drive. What I'm going to do with the car, just looking at it. The SDG become like a mobilia thing. People can just say they're doing instead of participation. Empowerment come on with a participation. That's why a program, I believe a program is a strong program because it's not just about talking about it. It's just like show the girls, show the people exactly the one who's going to affected by it. Implementation come with action, but who's going to make the action? It's the same like you tell me to run and you don't tell me where to run, left or right. But you have to tell me, okay, I want you to get out. When you get out from your left, start running to your, now that's the direction. Because we don't have a lot of time, not a lot of time left. What we're going to do is matter right now. Action step is matter. That's why I say give the girl the power because they know what to do. I'm working with you. And it is amazing how I get the idea to do what I do. Because I do assessment, I ask them for their feedback. Because I cannot bring a program in China without talking to a China person, a girl who lives in China, what I'm going to know. It's not about, it's a value we bring to the culture of the people who are going to affect by what we want them to do. And I want all the organization to start thinking the way they're doing stuff. We cannot repeat the same thing and thinking we're going to have a different result. We're still going to be working backward. No, that's what I say. I do not cooperate with organization because of this. I want you to make sure action plan. Don't tell me all the book you've been reading. I can go to a library and read them also. But tell me, what life have you been changing since your organization started? I don't tell you to save the world, but tell me one person since you been in contact with that person, their life is different 3 days ago, since because they got your advice. We start thinking about, that's why Do the Dream is something for me. And I want to do the dream, start pushing more action to tell them that dream supposed to scare you. Because I always tell people, if you dream, your dream do not scare you is an illusion. Stop making illusion in the head of the young people. Be actionable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you very much for holding the thread this far. I think this conversation has been extremely enlightening and direction building, something for us to check ourselves with. That are we really creating the kind of systems that we need based on the reality of being human? That is literally the end goal, to remain human enough. Given that we've created artificial intelligence in terms of the aggregation of information and knowledge, it is superseding us, whereas our main objective still lies defeated, which is to aggregate the generational wisdom that has been. So the question to ask is that while we are discussing all of this, while we are applying ourselves to think together, where do we build this exactly? And to help me unpack where we're going to build this, I would like to invite three people, three friends. There's Nate, who is the co-founder of Living Cities Earth and the Global Mayors Academy. We have Comfort and we have Shanaz. Comfort is also a part of the Global Mayors Academy, and he's also the design director for the CLK Design Studio. Shanaz is a board and a chairperson. I think she perhaps herself has lost count at how many places. She's a Salzburg Global Fellow. And I hope that she's here in the room with us because I believe that she sort of fell out. The network is always an issue. Shanaz, are you there with us? All right. So I hope that she joins in. Yes.
Adi, my apologies, Adi. Real quick, I just wanted to kind of, add one more distinguished panelist who's here with us right now. David Livette, please, if you don't mind, can you come to the stage to join our panel? David Livette. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we can still have you in the next panel as well. Yeah. Thank you. Over here. I have a seat over here. Thank you.
Yes,
all right.
We are at that stage where we can really say the more the merrier, because we really need to think together. So thank you for joining us live. Ola, if you could just repeat the name. I missed out the name of the gentleman who's joined us.
David Livette.
All right, David. David, thank you so much. So here we are, Nate and Comfort and everybody else who's in the room virtually and in person. Let us dive into where are we going to build this. And I'd like to start with what Yuko said, something so beautiful, that imagination is what drives us, or it doesn't, it stagnates us. So let's dive into the idea of imagination. And I pose my first question to you, which says that if girls and women were to ever design or helped us design our settlements from the beginning, what would be fundamentally different about how we think about energy, water, mobility, safety, belonging, being human with each other and all life on Earth? chase that imagination. The floor is open. Yes, Nate, go for it.
Well, I think part of what I want to note is that there are communities in the world today where that answer has already emerged. So I want to point to the Global Eco-Village Network for one set of examples, because many eco-villages have been founded by girls and women, and they provide examples of community-owned power, strong commitment to renewables, and a triple bottom line in which there are real livelihoods that include everybody. And these are places that are gems of very high quality of life when things are going well, and they are life rafts of resilience when things are going poorly. So I happen to have put on a T-shirt today. This is not a Global Eco-Village Network T-shirt, but this is a T-shirt that I got when I was facilitating the launch of the UK Workers Co-op Federation, and it says "Cooperate or Die." So what I'm trying to get at here is just an answer to the question you're asking, Artie. What is a world like when women and girls design it? Well, actually, it turns out that is a world where everyone designs it together, because women and girls are at least as good as men. Let's just say at least as good. But the research suggests better than at leading cooperating groups. And the poly crisis or meta crisis that we're facing collectively requires us to cooperate effectively. So what do communities look like? They look like living communities. That is, communities where humans and the non-human world we depend on are not dying.
Yes.
And that can bring us back to some conversations about living cities, perhaps.
All right. Nate, I think, the connection is a little problematic there, but I think that's such a beautiful idea. And we know your work with sociocracy would really, give you the courage and the right kind of language to articulate exactly this, that these are living communities. And moving on to comfort, why don't you share with us your experience and your perception and perspective on this idea?
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Archie. And I believe it's good afternoon to everybody on that side. It's good evening from South Africa here. I actually want to touch on sort of draw a string from what Dr. Bass spoke about earlier on when she mentioned this idea of why give me a car if you don't even know if I have a license or not. And the question I think that surrounds that, it's been quite incredible to listen to all the speakers presenting these positions, and I think right now it's a question of how do we make it all happen, right? How do we get to a point where we make this happen? And I think fundamentally it's about the values that shape human flourishing. And I initially thought I wasn't going to share a presentation which I'd prepared specifically for this, but if you don't mind, I'd like to share this with the colleagues here, just on sort of what our thinking is and what my thinking is around this whole topic. If I may, I hope this will work.
Should be fine.
Just checking if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. How about now?
Coming through. Yes. Here we are.
Fantastic.
Yes, we can see you as well.
I'm gonna try and move this up. Yeah. So, what, from my position, where I'm coming from, the perspective of architecture and the built environment, and I thought it would be important to sort of try and connect the dots between all the conversations that have taken place up until this point, to focus on how do we create sustainable cities and these urban-rural linkages, right? We already know statistically that much of humanity, especially in the global south, is going to be living, in urban centers. So cities will really become the core and the fundamental places where the human experience happens the most. And so we, in thinking about these SDGs, and the reason why I'm pulling on Dr. Bass's last point is I almost sensed a bit of frustration from her voice about, how do we make this happen? And when you talk about this imagining and imagination, that's where my role comes in from an architectural point of view. I often say, architects are one of the few people in the world that can walk into their dreams. And so my job is fundamentally as a design director is to imagine the world that we will live in and to stitch together these different realms across policy, across documentation, to eventually create the physical realm. And what I want to share with you is just a sense of these values and what it really is. And the fundamental question that I asked was, what exactly is a city in this case? If we're asking where will we build these things, where will we house these? And it really boils down to a system, various systems that come together across water, like we've discussed, around energy. Education was mentioned already. This idea of community, housing, mobility, environmental sensitivity and sustainability, governance, which is something that is unfortunately starting to fail across many countries globally. But these are all interconnected systems and ideas that formulate what we experience as a city, and the underlying principles that underlie people, infrastructure, policy, and what we end up experiencing. And so where my position sort of wants to migrate the conversation to is understanding where infrastructure becomes dignity and where planning becomes everyday life. I make the example of, if you think about yourself waking up in the morning, you turn on the tap, brush your teeth, you walk outside, you take your child to school, you go to work, all of these things happen within a particular context, and you most certainly don't notice them until something breaks. So the question becomes, what happens when the water doesn't flow? What happens when there's no power, right? All of a sudden, you start to realize how interconnected these things are. And the more fragmented we think about them, or the more isolated we think about these systems, the higher we will actually start to feel that cities are no longer becoming what we want them to become. And so I often then go to this idea that as architects, we're not really designing buildings as one would think, but rather we're designing the conditions under which people will live their lives and experience and have the experiences across their spaces, right? And so we have to think about human-centered design, both from human-led systems thinking, values-driven approach that is also future-focused. And I think these SDGs are pushing us towards making that a reality. And what architecture then seeks to do is to transform that into what we see and what we live and experience on a day-to-day across buildings and across infrastructure. And so the fundamental approach, the underlying, what I would call the underlying approach is really, what are the values that drive the decisions that we make at a planning and a policy level, at an investment level. Somebody mentioned earlier on, forgive me, I forgot who it was, but they mentioned how accountability must be thought of right at the beginning if you want to push capital and financing for projects to make it a reality. So when we think about these things, we're coming at it from a perspective of what are the underlying values that inform this? So what are the underlying values of capital? What are the underlying values of policy making? What are the underlying values of investment decisions? And that translates into the built environment, what most people typically experience as what we do as architects and as engineers. They experience the built space, and that's what creates the human experience. These same structures is what we can use to either segregate or connect people, right? And so the 5 principles of values that I feel need to drive the kind of what I refer to as the operating system of a thrivable city is really centered around these 5 interconnected principles or values, central among which is people, right? If you value people, that should be at the heart of every policy decision, every way that we think about these interconnected systems, the intersectionality that we're talking about. At the heart of it, I know we talk about women empowerment and bringing more women into positions where they can make these decisions. But I think more than realizing that we're talking about women, we need to also recognize we're talking about people, about human beings. And when that's the starting point, then you can have a sense of collaboration where there's working together to solve these complex problems. And I believe then through that collaboration, we're able to produce innovation. And innovation is what ultimately leads to what we see and experience as excellence. And that, by definition, I view that as a sustainable model for a thrivable city, because that sustainability, or that sustainable approach, is what creates the value for future generations, who, by the way, are also people, are also human beings. And so the cycle then sort of continues. And a lot of speakers have already touched on a lot of these principles. And I think for me, it's just to highlight how these underlying values is what leads to decision making at a policy level. That's where we're at with the SDGs. I think that's where it's sitting. But ultimately, that should lead to the built form, the built environment, what we experience on a day-to-day. And so to close, I'd like to say, in the question of where do we build this, or where does it need to be, it's not necessarily about building it from concrete, but about thinking about building it from a set of values. And the concrete that we see simply makes those values visible. And it's primarily driven by values which drive decisions, which drive infrastructure, and ultimately drive the human experience. Thank you.
Wonderful. Awesome. This was really an insight, comfort into how one needs to look at ecosystems, not in a linear manner, not even 360 degrees, but I think more like a spherical depth to sort of articulating what an ecosystem should be like. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We will come back to you, but I'd love to welcome David, who's joined us at the last minute. David, over to you. Do share with us what you do and a little bit about yourself, and also how are you thinking about the questions we've been asking. So just to give you a recap, we're talking about, yes, we need to have a system-wide transition, a sort of a whole system change, but where are we building it tangibly? Over to you.
Over to me. All right. Thank you very much. Well, I will introduce myself and my NGO right now, and then I'll actually answer a slightly earlier version of the question that you posed. Thank you, first of all, for having me here at this incredible event with some very fantastic initiatives discussed. And I apologize for bringing to the table that slightly pessimistic flavor of a social science perspective, but that's what I'm bringing. I represent the Society for the Psychological Study of Social Issues. By the way, it's a 90-year-old organization of social scientists. We've maintained UN activities since 1947, as a matter of fact, and we've had an accredited NGO on the ground here and in Geneva for the last 40 years or so. Our team currently works on 4 issues: anti-discrimination worldwide, climate justice, conflict resolution and LGBTQ issues. As you can discern, there's the tremendous overlap between the kind of things we're doing and some of our interest here today. So I have some comments which I'll make in the next panel, but I do want to answer the question about where to build. I think the question posed was, what would these structures look like if women exclusively grew or built them? And let me respond to that. And I'm hesitant to respond to that because we would have to make generalizations about women all over the globe. And we want to be careful when we do that because of the extreme differences in culture all over the globe. But we do know that traditionally, and for the most part, women tend to be more relational in their interactions than men for a number of different reasons. And organizations that women would create in the renewable sector and the energy sector, we would expect to have a stronger focus on relations and potentially a little bit a shorter hierarchy in terms of their organization. Also, a greater consideration of the emotional life of employees, of all employees, and with the idea of a cohesive organization. Also with power, without being a bit more sensitive to power differentials and certainly the abuse of power. It's interesting because there's a tremendous amount of work on women in leadership and why more women are not leading organizations. And there are a number of challenges that women face on the path to taking leadership. And I would hope that in the organizations that we are imagining, that pathway would be much less difficult, that we would not ignore the importance of the informal conversation, who's included and who's not included. So, that's my take on the question. What are we going to build?
Brilliant. Thank you, David, for that. And I agree. Complexity it's not just complexity. I think it is the kind of status quo we've created in terms of the stereotypicality. And we actually spoke about, the stigmatization and how one needs to tread lightly in terms of even rewriting the ontologies therein. So thank you for that insight. And we'd love to also stay collaborated on Girls in Energy and, bring in your insights. In the paucity of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to club two of my questions together and just open that for comments and insights. So, and Comfort, you did speak about not particularly concrete, but yes, symbolic concrete. So given that, what are some of the practices and traditions that need to change, and how do you think girls can actually drive it? And I'm referring specifically to the materials, because what we are doing with the earth in the pursuit of obtaining those materials is absolutely ghastly. It's like a kill switch we, relentlessly continue pushing. So what would you, and Nate as well, how do you see this?
So I'd like to, from my perspective, and just to touch on, David mentioned something interesting about, again, without at the risk of drawing sort of making assumptions about women generally all over the world. Of course, you wouldn't want to do that. But there is this general understanding that women tend to be more tender, more caring, more social. And so what I alluded to when I talk about the spaces we create and the values that they represent, right? Most cities today are, if you just look at a typical city, it's designed around the vehicle as the primary medium of transportation. So the primary occupant of a city space or a city environment is the vehicle, even to an extent, not necessarily the occupants of the vehicle, right? So we accommodate cities for vehicles. It's not pedestrian friendly. There's very few spaces that accommodate children. And there was something, really fascinating that I heard when we were in a strategy meeting. I'm just drawing from, project experience. I'm sitting with a group of engineers, and this is a civil project, infrastructure project. And the client asks a question to one of the civil engineers: how do you design a road, right? Or how do you build a road? And somebody responded by saying, always with a child in mind. And I just found that to be such a fascinating perspective, because typically from a technical point of view, you would think, you need subgrading, you need a truck, you need to move some soil, you need to level. You start to think about it at a technical level, but you don't think about it at a fundamental basic level, which is, if you think about, you design a road always with a child in mind, it completely changes your perspective. And I think there's something to be said there about, if you think about women in infrastructure, and I talk predominantly about infrastructure and design because that's the space I'm in. In architecture, women have been far and few between to be found in the built environment space. So I find it very, one can only imagine the kind of difference that would happen if I think of an architect like Zaha Hadid, who completely redefined how we think about architecture, how we think about spatial design, and she's become I'd say, the goddess of parametric design and futurism. And that comes from, having women and female voices included in the space of design and collaboration. So I think, in as much as this industry has been predominantly dominated by male figures, we need we need sort of women voices, we need diversity of thought, because then again, we are not designing for men, we are designing for humanity, and humanity needs to serve all interests, both young and old, across different genders, across different races and cultures. And, I think, for me, that's what I think would be different, or how to go back to your question, where the impact would lie is we need more engagement from women in the design space.
Thank you, Comfort. For sure. Nate.
Artie, would you be willing to repeat your question, please? My internet was cutting
Yes.
out, and
Not a problem. So the question that I'd asked was that at a more local practices level, specifically when we talk about the living, thriving, working spaces, what needs to change, and how can girls and women drive that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this makes me think of a few things. One is the work of my friend and colleague, Dr. Mika Snyder. So she works at the Institute for Development Studies and around the world in different communities. And one of the things that she's very focused on is the participatory process of action learning or action research. And over the past few years, she's worked with hundreds of children in Nepal and Bangladesh and other places on the worst forms of child labor. So here, if you want to talk about intersectionality as an economy, that's what we're talking about right there. These are children in the economy. And what she does with them is she helps them understand their experience and theorize what's happening and why it's happening. And she helps them work with their parents and their employers and other people in the community in order to transform their work. And, so what practices do we need? Fundamentally, we need participatory democracy. But when I'm saying participatory democracy, I'm not talking about some theoretical thing that's happening far away, or in a random specialized place. I started off talking about eco villages. Well, this is not just eco villages. This is slums. Okay. This is not just a matter for the elites. It's great for the elites, but really it's great for everybody. And another example, my colleague, Jayalakshmi Arpini. So I'm an adult support person for the Provisional World Children's Parliament. And so Jayalakshmi is a former child prime minister of India and a former lead of the World Children's Parliament. And the experience that I get when I'm working with her, she is a tremendously inspiring, and her family are garbage collectors. And we lost the focus. For many years, she worked.
We are having a little trouble hearing you, though. Yes, go on.
Oh no, I'm very sorry to hear that.
All
I'm
right.
not sure what to do about that. Is this any better, or shall I just stop?
Yeah, slightly. Just finish your last point, please. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll finish my last point. Apologies for the trouble here. So Jayalakshmi, her family are a family of garbage collectors. That's the work that they do. She lives and has grown up in India, and so there's kind of a caste thing going on. And so she's involved in this children's parliament movement. That is participatory action research. It is participatory local democracy. And she has, because of her participation in that system, brought in policies that were adopted by the national parliament in India, and has also stepped into, in fact, advising the UN. And this is something that I find tremendously inspiring. And so you talk about what practices do we need? We need participatory democracy at every scale. And we need it to be something where the children, the women, whomever we think of as being dispossessed, those people need to own the space that we're working in.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nate. And I hear you, because creating multi-stakeholder systems for engagement, for inviting that kind of a participatory environment, it is not easy, because the conditioning otherwise of the world is to actually be more secretive and work in silos. I mean, those are the highest levels of the most credible environments in the world. David, if I can quickly come to you and also hear what your take on this would be.
Well, thank you very much. Let me build a bit of a bridge from Comfort's earlier comments, and I wanted to thank you for depicting the cities in the graphic that you had shown with values at the very foundation. And in fact, I don't think we can look at any city, whether it was created this year or 5,000 years ago, without getting some sense of the values that particular society held. I'm conjecturing this. I'm not an architect. That's my thought. But then I found that your comment about what if we design cities for children to be really, really evocative and generative in this context. Well, that's a great question to ask. But other questions, parallel questions, would be, what if we design cities around women's safety? What if we design cities to facilitate the interaction between strangers? What if we design cities to strike a balance between areas of security and attachment and areas that are, new and vibrant and potentially a little, more exciting? These are all questions we could ask, and we could design cities around these questions. How about cities that have, that are entirely sustainable, et cetera, et cetera? What about cities that cultivate reading or recreation? I would like to think about all of these questions. But then you ask, well, what would would cities look like if women and girls were involved in the design of those? Well, I would hope that women and girls involved in the design of the cities would take up all of these questions, because men certainly haven't, or at least traditionally in some ways. So please bring on another team, and let's see if we can do what we know we can do through the skills and imagination of architects. We just have to have those values be so important to us as we're entering the design phase. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. And yes, infrastructure is just inherent to the kind of energy transition that we are aiming for, and therefore this particular hour in this discussion. And I thank you so much for this wonderful mind share, and extremely thought-provoking, because till the time we're not, like I said, the spherical perspective is not coming in terms of deconstructing our ecosystem and course correcting. We are still working in silos, and we're still aiming for only band-aid solutions. And clearly, we just have about 4 years left till we, we meet or we don't meet our self-created target of 2030. So here we are at the HLPF side event on panel 3, discussing how important infrastructure is to energy transition and to inviting the right brain thinking. So I'm glad that we all concur. Thank you so much, and I wish that you stay back for the rest of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ola Adebusi, if you're there, shall we move into the fourth?
Thank you, Adi, and thank you, our wonderful panelists, for the last session. I will certainly bringing this event to a close. We have one more panel to go to as we wrap up. But before we do that, we think it's important to show everyone, some videos of some of the local intervention of the work that is that the organization has been doing. So without further ado, can we move on and get some videos on the screen as we prepare for our next panel? Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Abdulmumin Faiza from Hayatoro Senior Grammar School. We are here to present this project named How to Generate Electricity with the Use of Lime.
With the use of what?
Lime.
Wow.
The water contained in the lime is 0.85 volts, which can be approximately to 1 volt, because a lime is an electrolyte solution, and an electrolyte solution can be used in generating or conducting electricity. So these are our materials. We are using lime, voltmeter, we have our galvanized nail coated with iron, we have our copper wire. Our galvanized nail is our negatively charged, while our copper wire is our positively charged. So these are the steps. We have our lime here. This is our negatively charged. So we insert it. We insert our nail, which is the negatively charged, and our copper wire is our positively charged. It must not touch each other, because unlike charges attract, but like charges repel. So we insert it. Instead of using a battery, we can use our lime. We can use our lime to generate electricity, and it can be used as battery for this voltmeter. So this is our negatively charged in our terminals, and our red, which is the positively charged. So we have our copper wire. This is the positively charged. So
use your mic, please.
We have our positively charged wire. Then we connect it to our negatively charged nails, because unlike charges, they attract each other. So we
Lady, have you live? Encourage them, encourage them.
This is our positively charged wire. It has been connected to our galvanized nail coated with iron, which is the negatively charged. So, because unlike charges they attract each other, so we connect it to our black, which is the negatively charged. One done. Hold it. Come on, hold it.
Encourage them, please.
So this has been connected. This has been connected to our galvanized nail coated with zinc, which is the negatively charged, because unlike charges they attract each other. So we connect our positive to the negative, while we connect our negative to the positive. So we use our black wire to our copper, which is the positively charged. Then we connect it with our positively charged terminal. With the use of lime, our voltmeter is working. It is in 0 before, now it is in 0.6 volts. Because our lime is from 0 to 0.85, which can be approximately to 1, and the amount of volts that the lime can measure is between 0 to 1, and the next number is more than 1, which is 1.2, so it can't reach there, and 0.6 is lesser than 1. So our voltmeter, assuming we use 3 lime for heat, it will measure 1.8, but we are not using 3 lime, we are using only 1, so it's measuring 0.6. So I want to tell you that instead of using a battery, our lime can also be used as a battery, because it is an electrolyte solution. An electrolyte solution can be used in generating or conducting electricity.
Adding to what my opponents say, we can also use this lime to connect. We can use it instead of using battery inside the calculator. We can also make use of lime to light our calculator so that we can make use it to work. We can also use it for 3 LED lights. This bulb that contains the bulb we have in Christmas lights, we can also use the lime to light it up. Thanks.
Good day, everyone. We are students of State Senior College, Alimosho, and the theme of our project is empowering the female child in the aspect of engineering. We found out that many female children do not venture into engineering. They feel like it's a course for only boys. We found out that in our school we have a jet club, and when you go to that club, you find out that so many boys are there and only a few girls. So we came together to encourage our ladies to join the jet club and become engineers. We came to present our project, which is an MP3 radio, a wind power generator, and some artistic work, which we did in our jet club to encourage our girls to join the jet club, because the future of engineering is actually female. So my colleague will explain how the MP3 radio actually works.
So at first you connect your Bluetooth to it, then you switch.
Teacher in Singapore. I think it's really important for the teachers, your parents, and for you to hear. Dear parents, the exams of your children are to start soon. I know you're really anxious for your child to do well, But please do remember, amongst the students who'll be sitting for their exams, there's an artist who doesn't need to understand math. There's an entrepreneur who doesn't care about history or English literature.
Okay, so this was made from used cans. It was made from a panel that has been spoiled and also cord. We also have
Our fan is a good example of transforming waste to wealth. Female children can use waste, common waste found in our house, to turn it into useful things which can make income to us. This fan is made from only 5 materials which are found from the trash. First, we have used batteries, switch, and regulator found from our spoiled or broken appliances, and like speaker, fans, and so on. We have wires found from our also house appliances, which are connected in series to allow the flow of current to be equal, passing from the battery to the fan. We also have some broken wood from broken furniture, which are put together to make it look like a box shape and to make the fan stand high and regulator to hold it. We also have cardboards which are used to decorate it and cover it. This one is made from pure plastic. As you see, the fan is broken. The fan is made and cut out from plastic. The carburetor and the plastic, as you can see, is working. It also has battery and switch that powers it to work. It can be used as a mini portable fan, which we can put in our houses for heat, because of Nigeria now. There's too much heat in the house. So this thing is used to help people who do not have money to afford the bigger ones or the more electronic ones. This one will help them to at least have breeze in the house. So we also have a complete definition of mosaic. This is a house made with matchsticks, or a matchsticks house. We gum the matchsticks here to form a perfect house with trees, then the sun. Sorry. Then this is also a love shape with broken bottles and cut of nylons. Then with the wood, we made a box shape, then we made the love. Then this we made with bead and also nylon. We drew the children there so people can see that this is International Children's Day. We actually made it Children's Day, May 27. So we decided to bring it.
And also we have a wind generator. When we can use our hand or anywhere there is breeze. This is very well. It can also be used with running water. The water will flow through the plastics. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, those were wonderful, wonderful videos. We've seen girls. I know we've said so many times that girls are going to build the next, the energy enterprise of the future. I think we've just seen it being displayed. The level of, collaborations and, the work that they do, I think is magnificent. So thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to see those videos. So now moving on to our next panel. I mean, there's a lot that has been said today, but how can we build this enterprise? How can we build this local action? How can we build all of the things that we've talked about today without the right partnership? I think we can all agree that, initiating, building, and running the best partnership is a very, very important source in, being able to kind of build this work. So with that said, we've already I think we've already met the next panelist that I'm going to introduce here. So maybe there's no need for them to introduce themselves because we've met them. We want to really dive into the into the discussion. So and the panelists for this fourth panel discussion will be David Levert. Thank you for your presence. We also have Otto Starsman, Dr. Blessing Ayemere. If you're still online, it's virtual for right now. So these are the panelists for the fourth session of our panel. And as we round up, I think there's very important conversation that we will have to have. So I'll throw out the very first question and we'll get everyone's insight on them. The first question is, if we know what works, why do we still finance isolated projects instead of investing in the ecosystem that sustain long-term transformation? So over to you, panelists.
Yeah, isolated projects persist because the system still rewards visible output over durable ecosystem. We don't have a mechanism for rewarding the durable ecosystems. So donors, public agencies, and even private investors find it easier to fund one mega project with a clear, big announcement, flashy and everything, than to fund the hard work of building the institutions and the relationships and the delivery platforms that would make it possible for multiple small projects to get done and succeed over time. So that's really the problem. And even if the impact of those multiple projects is much greater than the mega project, it's still easier to do the mega project instead. So in my experience, which includes multilateral work across all of Latin America with the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank, and later my legislative testimony work, I see the same pattern repeating itself all the time. If the project preparation, governance, and capital architecture are weak, then the good intentions fragment before anything happens, before the results are realized. And as you know, I'm from the Global Mayors Academy, and what we do here in this space is teaching city leaders to operate beyond this sort of siloed approach to project development and the siloed thinking that goes with it, and to lead with the practical judgment needed to build lasting capacity, to build the capacity that can make projects done one by one, small ones, large ones, whatever is needed, using local resources.
Thank you. To the other panelists, David, I want to see if you want to probably just pass the mic over to you for your comment.
The question is why there's a preference for larger projects, already proven technologies, rather than a more experimental micro approach. And not to be glib, but because the decision makers are human. And being human, we don't always don't always use the criteria that are important to our funders. We don't always consider evidence. Often we take shortcuts, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And there's a certain amount of focus that we can all maintain. Lots of small projects take a lot of time to evaluate and are difficult to look at in parallel. On the other hand, we know for a fact that smaller projects offer not only the chance to innovate more, but may actually be a better and more efficient use of funding. I would counter with the other question, that is, after 150 years of very strong evidence about the power of prevention in terms of health and mental health and other things like that, why are we not putting more money into prevention, full stop?
Thank you. I also want to bring in, Dr. Page. I don't know if you're still online, Rebecca as well. I also want to kind of, if I can pull you into this conversation as well, while we have you. But while we're doing that, let me see if Dr. Blessing is still online. I want to just kind of go over to you to see what your thoughts are on this subject, on this question.
We're not sure Dr. Blessing is still with us.
Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you for that. All right, Dr. Page, any comments on the question of partnership? If we know what works, why do we still finance isolated projects instead of investing in the ecosystem that sustain long-term transformation?
That's a very serious question. I think I don't even know where to start from. But the truth of the matter is that people have gotten so comfortable with isolated solutions. People have gotten so comfortable with one-off solutions or projects. I think we need to now start moving away from projects and start looking at programs. And because it's within programs that we're able to build sustainable impact, right? We need to look at programs that are sustainable independently on their own, and that's where the Girls in Energy comes in, because we're not just building we're not developing a project. We're developing a program that requires collaboration, and it requires a whole bunch of stakeholders that are bringing their own part into the project. They have a role to play. And if we all combine all of this together, we're able to now deliver bigger impact. Because if we look at the Makoko story, Makoko, imagine if all the resources they had invested in Makoko, if it had been consolidated, I can assure you that Makoko had millions of dollars had gone into Makoko, and it never stopped being a slum. It never stopped being a slum because everybody has a project, everybody has something to show. So we need to move away from projects to start to programming. And once we move into programming, it's easier to now look at impact. And then we now bring in meal frameworks. And a lot of times, most projects are just to tick boxes that, oh, we've gotten funding for this, we've gotten funding for that. So we need to move away from ticking the boxes to now saying, what is the meal approach that we want to bring into it? We've talked a lot about accountability. So accountability not just goes beyond just delivering the project, but actually measured impact and saying what was the economy of this community when we came into it? What is the economy when we invested $1 million? How did that affect the economy? And not say, we want to put $1 million into this place. Oh, have we put the $1 million? Have we delivered the project? Yes. But did it have any significant impact within that community? And I think that is where the partnerships now come in, because when we look at isolated solutions, it doesn't look at the entire holistic problem that these communities are facing. So partnership is critical at this stage. Isolated solutions cannot solve the problem. It is clear we've been doing it for over 10 years and it hasn't changed the needle. The SDG goals are still far off track and nothing is working. And somebody said earlier today, which I totally agree with, if we continue to do the same thing, and expect different results, then we're wasting our time. So this is the time for us to start thinking differently and thinking, how do we break this thing down? How do we break these problems into solutions that transcends what we've been doing before, that looks into the future and sees how it continues to become sustainable, that it can take care of itself over time without having to depend on income or donor funding or any other funding. I think that is where the solution lies. Until we start thinking together, until we start thinking and pulling all those resources together into one bucket to do something using the meal framework, which is results-based and not performance-driven, we will not be able to achieve it. We'll still be struggling.
Thank you, Dr.
I would
Page.
like to add a thought to what Paige just said, because my work is how do you make these actions financeable? How do you actually get the money in? And I wanted to focus on a real world example, which is the Bristol City Leap project. It's called from the UK. It's a good example because what it did is it transformed a whole bunch of fragmented local grassroots ideas into a multi-million-dollar finance-ready climate program. And this is the roadblock that Bristol faced. It's the same roadblock everywhere. The city council and the local community groups had all of these ambitious carbon reduction goals, and they lacked the public capital to make them happen. So they couldn't deploy all these projects at scale. So what the city decided to do, and what we helped them to do, was to move away from chasing these isolated grants all over the place for each one of these little projects and create a structured public-private partnership model. And then we aggregated all of these small projects into one big program so that institutional investors could no longer ignore them, because institutional investors don't see a $2 million project. That's nothing. Or a $10 million project even, that's nothing. But when it all came together and these thousands of small projects and scattered initiatives are bundled together, it was heat pump retrofits, school solar installations, EV charging networks, all of these little things all over the city were all put together into a citywide portfolio. It was possible to make it happen. And that then was packaged into a 20-year joint venture concession agreement. So they took that risk that the investors always see out of the equation and made it into a very secure revenue model for them. And then we were able to monetize the whole thing. We then embedded the community tier to maintain local agency, because that's so important that the local people have agency and you build that community trust. So as a result of that, the entire endeavor, which ended up being at the time millions of pounds, was able to be deployed across the entire city, and all the thousands of little projects could get done.
Thank you. Rebecca, I'm going to go to you. I'll give you this mic.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to comment on what was just stated, because it is so I also sit on the Financing for Development Committee at the UN and the Climate Finance Working Group. And what we have heard from IMF and the World Bank over this past quarter has been exactly what you were just speaking to, sir. And it was what my comment was going to be. So you set this up perfectly. Thank you. That the biggest issue that we're running into is risk mitigation. And I was going to ask if we had any examples of projects that actually bundle together. And what we've been told at the UN in Financing for Development, that we have to bundle projects, and they were talking in the hundreds of millions, but it sounds like you're talking about even larger than that. So my question to you, sir, is that is incredible and something that a city was able to do because of the resources that they have. Do you have any suggestions or ways for us to start thinking about how nonprofits and NGOs can come together to create similar style packages that Bristol was able to create?
Well, let me tell you about this. This actually started as a nonprofit project in Italy. Picture this little medieval village on the top of a hill, tiny village which started back in the 1100s. Now, it was coal powered. All their electricity was made from coal, and they wanted to have sustainable energy. How do you do this? All the people were on board. The little town council was on board, all the local people, all the NGOs, everybody wanted to make this happen. But the project costed something like 9 million euros. Totally invisible for an institutional investor. So what did we do? We decided to go the model of a corporate sustainable development goal linked bond program. So in other words, not government, corporate. And we brought in Enel. Enel is the global power utility giant. They're enormous. If we were talking about roads earlier, if you think of a utility company, electricity company as a car, you don't even think about the road it's driving on. Enel is the road on which most utility companies in most of the world drive. Okay, and so we brought them in, and instead of the traditional green bonds and all the other stuff that we did, we were able to create this corporate bond mechanism, and the corporation's interest rate is legally tied to hitting target metrics. So what that does with this gigantic company there, investors feel confident. It's legally there. If they don't hit the targets, they pay a penalty fee to the investors, and that corporate bond program ended up raising $2.4 billion. That is a massive capital wall that Enel was then able to use to provide renewable energy, not just to the little town in Italy, but to dozens of towns in Europe, in Italy, Spain, and all across South America. So from that one bond, lots and lots of villages that could have never achieved renewable energy were able to get it. So, there's a couple of steps involved in doing something like that, but this is absolutely doable. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it, bring in the right people, and making it happen. And NGOs can certainly be a part of that sort of value creation.
So I just wanted to add to what he just spoke about, right? I don't know if anybody has ever heard of the Taobao villages story, right? And that was how Alibaba was able to lift out the villages from poverty by de-risking the value chain. And this is what you're talking about here. How do we, so the conversation we need to start having is, and one of the things as a finance, I also studied financing for development at the World Bank. And one key thing that resonates is the funds for development is not in the hands of government, it's in the hands of the private sector. So what the conversation we need to start having is, how do we get the private sector into the room to be able to bring in the funding that we need for development? If one person is worth $1 trillion today, what does he need $1 trillion for God's sake? He can't spend all that money. But why is that money now tied up in one person when that money can be spread globally and can generate greater impact? So the conversations we need to start having is, how do we leverage your organization, NGOs, most importantly, bring the private sector into the room to be able to mobilize that capital, to bring in that capital, bring it into one bucket and drive the sustainable development goals, drive development across board. Because when they're in that room, when they bring in that capital, it's easier to now say, this is where we want to put the capital in. Well, these are all the NGOs that have stakes in different areas and doing different things. And we're not just going to come and put street lights. If I put street lights in your community, it doesn't solve the problem. But we're going to look at a holistic solution where we come into your community, we look at all the problems that are holding you back economically. If you tell me that you're giving me vaccines, I don't need you to pay for my vaccines. If you empower me economically, I can afford to go to the hospital and pay for my hospital bills. So the essence is, how do we transform communities now to ensure that people are able to become economically viable, sustainable, for themselves? They can sustain their livelihoods, they can sustain their income, they can sustain so many things. So that's where the NGOs now come in, to come together and look at community by community and bring in the private sector to the table and say, this is what we need from you. It could be through CSR, it could be through any other funding or de-risking window that it can come together. Put those things in place and bring a marriage together. And that's one of the things that as Congo, you can also drive. You need a lead organization driving that. We have someone here that is in private sector that understands capital raising, that has done a lot of things in terms of capital raising, working with private sector. He also brings that expertise to the table. And then you bring all this ecosystem, all the stakeholders together and start having those conversations. I think when we do that, we're going to change the narrative. The paradigm is really going to shift. But until we take that bold step, we're still going to keep having these conversations, and we're going to be here in the next 5 years, and we're still going to be asking these questions.
Yeah, but you asked the question, how? You said, how do we do this? So let me answer.
Yes.
The problem that we have is very simple. Apart from all of the projects and the actions being too tiny for institutional investors to recognize as viable, all of the little local entities have different metrics. They're all localized and they're arcane, they're weird, they're so different that institutional investors don't understand them. What NGOs can help to do, and this was absolutely necessary for that project that we did with NL, was to standardize those metrics so that they can fit into the kind of model that institutional investors understand. And NGOs can absolutely help with that. So what we did was we anchored the local projects to the UN Sustainability Goals number 7, which is affordable and clean energy, and the Sustainability Goal number 13, which is climate action. So it was packaged that because the bond was going to be linked to the sustainable development goals. So we had to do that. But all of the metrics within all of those projects had to be harmonized somehow. And that's where NGOs can do the groundwork to help to do that harmonization process so that that sort of bond packaging can occur. That's how you get big investors on.
Yes, and just one final comment on that. As a representative of co-NGO, I was wondering if, since we are a coalition of NGOs and represent a number of nonprofits, social movements, grassroots movements, as well as very large NGOs, would it be something that co-NGO would be able to be the driving force and start collecting that data and be perhaps the intermediary and the one that works with an organization like yours to get this pulled together to actually start working this forward?
I don't see why not.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Ola, if I can just come in here and quickly, so that
Afi, thank you so much also for that wonderful submission. And Rebecca is actually the co-chair, the chair of NGO Committee on Dignity, and that's still fall into our jurisdiction, if I'm right. Also, and also thank you so much for that submission of driving this course. My response to this is this: the Congo Conference of NGOs in Consultative Relationship with United Nations is divided into many folds. We have regional committee in Africa. We have regional committee in
hi Sean. It's Betty.
Southern America. We have
Hey, it's me, Betty.
we have regional committee in the
Well, I ain't hear from you at all. But listen, I called to tell you.
So someone should please, you can mute your mic, please. We have regional committees all over the world. So my question to you is this: if you're going to be leading this plan with Congo, will the plan work serially or with the broad view of the Congo perspective? Thank you.
So if I understand your question correctly, you want to know whether it can be done in series,
okay, yeah,
or whether it needs to be one big project.
It can be done in one big project because, for example, the purpose of our meeting today is Girls in Energy project, which is from the Global South. And part of Global South includes Africa and part of Asia and part of Southern America. And if you look at Congo, Congo is also divided in such a way. There are some in Southern Africa, there are some in Africa, there are some in Asia as well. So my question state is this: if we are championing this, are we limiting it to one particular region, or we are taking it as a broad project for the whole of Congo organizations in the implementation plan? Thank you.
Yes. So the answer is it can be either or, and it can be both. So the reality is, what are you tackling first? So you're talking about women and energy. The fact is, you're talking about energy. The women are going to be involved in every aspect of development going forward anyway, whether it's energy or anything else. So if we're going to be doing a project where we need financing, The idea is, how big do we do it? How do we build in the accountability? How do we create the metrics so that they're harmonized? And how do we do that in such a way that they're aligned with specific development goals? Once that's done, then it becomes easier to create the financing packages necessary to talk to a big corporate sponsor or even to institutional investors. It doesn't make a difference. It becomes visible. Right now, what's happening? You're getting all of these wonderful ideas where each individual action is so small and has its own set of metrics that the people came up with. They're wonderful. It's great. It's beautiful thinking. The problem is that it doesn't fit in to the way investors function. So we have to just do that work. It's not a matter, it's not too hard, but it is an interpretation project, it's a translation project, and it's a matter of getting everybody to see things the same way. And it can be done. It's about communication. We can build this, and then we can decide at that point, okay, do we tackle a project that focuses on Africa only and make that one big thing? Do we do one that focuses on South America or Asia only and do one big thing there? Or do we make it one gigantic project like the NL project was? It went from Europe all the way across South America. So, you know, it's just a matter of how we decide to do this. I'll let you know this thing about the NL project. It was triple subscribed. In other words, the amount of money that was needed was blown away within a month. When in no time, there was 3 times the amount of money that we wanted to get everything done. So there is a huge demand for projects that are structured properly, that are financeable, where the money can go in. So there's no shortage of capital out there to do this sort of thing. There's no shortage.
All right.
All right. Artie, I think you have a comment, but before we go to Artie, I want to say that, you know, for real, Puran, who's also part of the panel, I think we've just restored your connections. So I want to welcome you, for real. In the meantime, Artie, I'll let you chip in your comments, please.
Yes. So while this conversation was really nice and hot, I'm also sort of throwing in a wild card. And with that, I'd love to introduce Fariel as well. She's the sister who lives across the oceans, but we've been working for the last 3 years. And the thing is that while we're looking at this energy transition and financing and all of that, you see, in our experience, and I don't think so anybody would disagree, old money doesn't show up for new solutions and certainly not at the grassroots, which means that we also need wealth creation systems that are embedded within the kind of ecosystems that we are aiming to develop. So if we want energy transition, let's say in the context of girls in energy, then we need to have value chains that are monetizable, and therefore that new wealth is created, because these are populations that do not understand the language of an investor. And that said, I'd love to introduce Fariel into the discussion for her last words here and golden words, and it'll be like such a perfect time for her to walk in and close the panel with her beautiful insight. So Fariel, in case you want us to give you a little insight and input into where we are, let me know. Otherwise, go for it.
Don't worry. I caught up very quickly. And of course, Otto is on my team over there. So thank you, Otto, for holding the team strong there. And for me, I've got 2 words: unprecedented collaboration. This is the moment for that. Girls, what is it about us in energy? What is it about us in government? What is it about us in politics? It's because we are no longer seeking. We want to nurture our families, our communities, and that is the point here. You know, so excuse my French, but when the guys are still trying to talk about bullshit, let's get just down to business. And what I mean by this is we need to be protecting our families. We need to be creating the infrastructure that is needed. And we know that these things are needed. But the thing is, the guys have got these egos and have been having the egos. I'm not talking about everybody now, but this, and what happens is it's about still creating something for a country, a city, a place. Y'all, I am born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa. I live in Europe now for the last 20 years. My heritage is Indonesian, Indian, Arab, you name it. The bottom line of it is we're world citizens. It's time we build together. Forget about Congo, Nigeria, South Africa, whatever. The point is, now is the moment for us to say, so we've just, for example, a little while ago, we did a big Erasmus grant with 3 African nations. We brought in, and we were very clever in India. We brought in 6 African nations. We brought 3 European, represented nations and things like that. So my point is, it's just, let's start to talk to each other. Let's stop trying to blow our own little flags, build our own little things, because that's the only way we're going to do that. Remember, the ones with power right now.
Oh
Perfect.
no.
Oh my God.
We've
Oh,
lost
the punch.
you.
Love the energy. Love the energy. I think this conversation, I mean, this is a great conversation that we're having here right
Yeah.
now. And I think it's very, very germane to the things that we're talking about. So I love the energy in the room. And this is not going to end there, obviously. But I think a lot of the insights, the energy that we've all gathered from this, I think would help, forge things in the right direction. And I think it's also a great time to segue into questions and answers, right? As we're beginning to round up, I think we can go on this subject forever, but
Yes.
we're not gonna end it, obviously. But we're gonna continue the conversation. So I want to give everyone, both the panelists, the audience, anyone who has, some final questions, and this could actually touch on the subject of partnership, which we're segueing from, or you could touch on any of the subject that we've discussed already today as we begin to kind of wrap up. Does anyone have any questions? Who? Oh, Farrah's back. Oh, yeah, you're back. All right. Let's hand it back over to you to finish your.
No. It really cut off right at the point that I finished. So we're good. It's good timing.
No, that's great. That's great. So, so just kind of opening it up. Any final word, any final remark, any final statement? Dr. Blessing, I think your network also was restored at some point. So I don't know if you're still on. I know it's very late in Nigeria. So thanks for hanging out with us if you're still there, if you're still here. But I just want to see if your network is connected and if you have any final comment as well. All right. Doesn't look like it, but it's okay. Thank you. Any final words, comments, remarks?
Yes, I have my last words. So what I'm going to leave us with today is as we're leaving this session, let us think of the partnerships that we plan to build. This conversation should not end in this room, on this Zoom. It should transcend beyond this room. We should all meet at Ongar in September and talk about the kind of projects we've started working towards and be talking about the steps we have taken from today to start advancing this course and moving the needle forward. Because if we don't take that concerted effort, but this session is also going to be another conversation like it has always been at the UN. It's always talk, talk, talk. So please, let's move from talk. It's time for action. And I see very passionate people in the room. I see people that are ready and are committed to action. And I look forward to seeing that action becoming a reality. I look forward to Ongar, and I look forward to us having the next level of growth for the Girls in Energy Project, for every project that we aspire to achieve across the global south, across the world, because this is the time for us to come together. There's no more time for fragmentation. There's no more time for silos. This is the time for us to work together, come together, and build the world that we want. That's my closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Well said.
One thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
You go.
Thank you. I would love to share this as my final word. I would love for all of us to remember where the word economics come from, which is household management. It's more than finance. It's more than investment. It's more than that. So when we see this beautiful ecosystem as a household that we share with each other, how do we want to manage that? And what are we not seeing? And I think that is beyond what we call it as a ROI or the metric that's scalable. That's a hard work, that's a people's work. And that's where Rebecca was saying about the storytelling. That's where we can touch people's heart and we want to create the habit of what is not showing in this number. I think that's something that we want to continue and do the heart-centered work, relational work, because our resilience is in a relationship. And I think that's what we also want to continue the conversation as much as economy as in finances beyond.
Thank you. Thank you once again. I'm not going in any particular order here, but for our panelists that are still in the room, I'm just going to go around the table and just ask for that final word. David, Yvette, any final word?
Just a final thank you for inviting us to participate in this event, and it's been very informative, but also passionate. So both of those really help.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your presence. Otto?
Yes, I want to echo the same thing. Thank you for having us. It was great to be a part of this. And I think there's a lot that can be done if we learn from what has been done before. It's true that we need to make some changes in the approach to things, but I think we can use what we already have to make some big leaps ahead that we have not made yet.
Thank you. Rebecca, any final word?
Thank you. I just want to remind us of one really important piece that was kind of touched on today, but was not really explicitly said, that we are all intimately interconnected, and what happens for me impacts you and vice versa. And it's not about finding new solutions. It's actually about remembering the solutions which worked and brought us together in the past, and going back to that indigenous knowledge and having that at the core of what we do and how we do it. Yes, financing is radically important, but as my good friend here, well, she doesn't know we're good friends, but I would like to be, mentioned, it is so much more about the quote unquote finances of what we're doing. It is about community connection, interconnectedness, and remembering that we are so incredibly powerful, but only when we work together and we remember and we work together in everything that we're doing, knowing that it's about we, not about me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now I'm going to go virtual now. From my view, I'll go clockwise and
I have to go after that one.
Oh yeah.
Listen.
Okay. All right. You can go. Yeah. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I love what you just said.
Yes.
Because absolutely, we've just been in a whole week of meetings in Switzerland, trying to work with the Swiss and building there with them. And the words that we brought to the table was Ubuntu. I am because you are. We are not separate. We are not alone in this. And it's time we find each other. Sit around the table. So I put my details in the chat there. Please, let's get together, whether it's in the virtual world or in the real world, but let's start to talk and start to look at how we do this together, because that's the only way. I guarantee you we're going to do this. We're not going to be able to do this separately. So thank you. I am complete.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
So my last words, like I said, is I look forward to the partnerships that will come out of this. I look forward to that everybody has said it all. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So we can't do this alone. We can't continue to work in isolation. We can continue with the silos. Let's come together and let's build a force that is strong. You can break one stick, but if you have a bunch of stick, it's impossible to break it. So it's almost difficult, almost impossible. So please, let's leverage that strength, that partnership, that togetherness, that passion that we have for global development, for personal development, for community development. Let's bring all that to the table and look at how we're going to transform our world and make it a better place for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Jeremy and then to Artie.
Hey, thank you. I'd like to leave everyone with one thought. Today's conversations, they reminded us that the future isn't something that simply happens to us. It's something that we build together. We know many of the challenges, we know many of the solutions. Now it's our responsibility to turn those ideas into action. Let's continue investing in people, especially our young people and our girls. Let's strengthen partnerships across governments, nonprofit organizations, businesses, communities. And let's remember that sustainable development isn't just about infrastructure. It's about creating opportunities for people to thrive. If each of us leaves here committed to taking one meaningful action, then today's discussion will have accomplished a lot more than simply exchanging ideas. Thank you to everyone here for your leadership, your passion, and your commitment to building a better future. The future isn't built by those who wait for change. It's built by those who choose to create it together. I put my contact information in the chat. Please feel free to reach out anytime. And thank you again. It's been an honor.
Thank you for sharing that. Artie.
All right, thank you, Ola, and thank you, everybody. It's been like such an enriching session today, unlike the normal side events that take place. So Dr. Page and I, we are the co-chairs for the Global Working Group. Please feel free to chase after us. If we don't respond, you can still chase after us because, people get tired. But I think as far as SDG 17 is concerned, we really need to hold that space for each other and get this going. Because after this, I don't think so we have too much margin left if we do not decidedly choose our better informed evolution going forward into the future as we are. So this is possibly the turning point in the life of all of us before the future unfolds, as it is we're being threatened by it in not so many ways. So like I said, we are going to be forming these global working groups because Girls in Energy architecture in itself is pretty gigantic, I would say, as an ecosystem concept. So we will need hands on deck, and it's not just about Nigeria or Africa or the global south. I think we also have to align with the idea that we are all found within one Earth system. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you for making that important note. Sweta, I see you there.
Thank you. So I want to say that without women, the world would not progress. But it's very important to respect women in energy sector, bring transformation to this world, because it is fundamental to our essence of life to explore what has not been yet discovered. So with that, I would invite more collaboration into our STEM program from Relief Alliance, and also building energy microgrids and power plants across through Gridless Global, and also outreaching those stories that grassroots levels transformation through Wealth Strategy Media. So with that, I conclude and wish everybody a very happy and a blissful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll bring this to a close. And I just want to say to all the distinguished delegates, all the representatives from the member state, colleagues from the United Nations system, and our host, the Permanent Mission of Nigeria to the United Nations, and all the partners above all, and every attendees who have actually stayed with us this long for a very, very important conversation. We want to say thank you. Obviously, we want to continue the discussion. We want to continue the partnership. And as we've all said, I think we have if I can put it in our marching orders as to what we need to do to further all of that. So we'll continue to do that. I also want to quickly remind you, Girls in Energy is a powerhouse, right? And for those of us who are not aware, you can see a lot of our work on girlsinenergy.org. Once again, it's girlsinenergy.org. You can visit us, you can partner with us, and you can reach out to us, and we'll continue the conversation and move this forward. So once again, I want to say thank you. I believe we have some refreshment outside, so please grab a snack and drinks as you step out. And with that said, we put this meeting to a close, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you.
It was online. What about our freshman attendees? Uh, thank you, Ati, for a job well done.
All our attendees, we thank you.